All right, everyone, we are live and direct. I was a little bit late. I was supposed to come here at 5 p.m. Eastern time, but I got a little bit occupied because I'm taking care of a sick chicken right now. The chicken has been recovering from being egg bound. We got the egg out. She's been recovering very well, actually, but still needs a little bit of work. Super Jam, if you want to talk about why working at a call center sucks, call me at my Discord and we can talk about it, because I've never worked at a call center before. So I put the link to my Discord on the chat, and you can tell me everything about how it is working at a call center. Call me about anything you guys want. I'm not here just to discuss politics. I'm not one of these guys. Thank you. Yeah, she's going to be fine. She's a strong chicken. It's amazing how attached I've become to chickens. Hey, Isle of Aran. Where are you? With a name like that, I must ask, where are you from? What's up, Sean? I'm doing okay, man. Just chilling. I was reading a little bit about Myanmar. You have these huge demonstrations going on there right now. They all want that lady back in power. What was her name? Ayong Lee or whatever. God, that woman looks crazy. That woman looks hella evil. She was involved in some kind of a genocide against the Rohingya people, Rohingya Muslim people. So I was reading up on that. But lately, I've been reading a lot on the French Revolution and how during the French Revolution there was this horrific hatred to Christianity, and people were literally they were butchering Christians like chickens. It was like, we read about the Ugandan genocide and all that, and it's like, oh yeah, people argue that that's Africa. People read about the Rwandan genocide, or they'll read about something that happens in Africa, like some villages butchered in Africa, Boko Haram type stuff, and they're like, oh look, the Africans, yeah. That's just Africa, But stuff like that was happening in Europe. The thing is that it's been 70 plus years since stuff like that has happened in Europe. So we're not really used to it. But then we were shocked about what was going on in the 1990s with Yugoslavia. Croats and Serbs butchering each other. And it was just like Africa, which really goes to show you that, European countries or Western countries are not exempt from this sort of behavior. What do you think of Tunisia and the recent protests? If the protests are... Okay, hold on. If the protests are happening in Tunisia, it's a police brutality protest, is what I've heard, or is what I'm reading right now. Actually, because honestly, there's so many things happening. It's just hard to keep up with everything. Hold on. Oh, goodness. Something just fell down. Oh. I'm terrible at this live streaming stuff. But there's so many things happening around the world. It's like, how the hell can you keep up? It's enough just reading about what's been going on in Myanmar. It's enough just reading about what's been happening in France. There's stuff happening all the time. There's protests happening all the time. They want to see the fall of the regime. Let's see here. Thousands of protesters took to the streets in Tunis, chanting the slogan, "The people want the fall of the regime." against the Islamist Ennahda party, a member of the government coalition. Riot police had in advance of the rally deployed cordons around central Tunis, preventing both cars and people from entering the streets around Avenue Habib Bourguiba, where the demonstration took place. Despite these efforts, the protest was one of the biggest protests in recent years. Well, listen, if there's a protest in Tunisia and it's secular, there's always the good chance that it's going to get co-opted by Islamists. That's what happened in Egypt. Not everyone in the Egyptian protests were Islamists. There were lots of secularists there as well. So it wasn't all just jihadism. But looking at what's been going on in France, someone actually brought this to my attention yesterday. I did a video about France yesterday about how the French government is actually intensifying its anti-hijab law, and it's also making more and more restrictions. I got you, Sean. There's just more. They want to put more and more restrictions on Islamic activity, and people think, oh, that's great, that's a good thing. There was actually a priest who is actually warning against this. Let me see here. Somebody said it. Yes, I got it right here. Archbishop Eric de Moulins Beaufort. And this guy was warning about these laws because supposedly these laws are being put in place to go against terrorism, but it's actually very likely that they're going to be used to escalate policy against religion. That is what's worrying, is that this is actually against religion in general. It's Islam. It's against religion in general. And what the Archbishop is warning is that what this new policy does is it essentially instills in the society more and more of a suspicion for religious people. Like religious people need to be seen with suspicion. True believers need to be seen with suspicion. And this policy could be used not just against Muslims, but against Christians and Jews. So this is what's so worrisome about this thing. This is why, I think that in a secular society, if the government is targeting one religion, we all should be worried about that. Now, if you're living in an Islamic society or a Christian society where the religion is part of the policy of the state, or the religion is the official faith of the state, then it's expected that government is going to target other religions because they want to protect the status quo, because religion is a foundational element of influencing a society that's been utilized by governments for thousands of years. So, of course, it makes sense that governments would want to maintain the religious status quo of a society. That's understandable. It's not necessarily good, but it's understandable and it's expected. Okay. But if a secular society begins to attack one specific religion, well, it's like, well, there is no religion of the land. Like, there is no religion of the state, which means if one religion is attacked, all religions are in danger. All religions are potentially in danger, because what happens if you have a subsequent regime or some sort of subsequent or following policy that begins to escalate the policy against other people? So at first they go after the Muslims. Oh, we sit here and say, hoorah, hoorah, God bless America or whatever. Well, guess what? Atheists would agree with that policy. Atheists would agree with such a policy. They'll say, oh, yeah, this is great. Muslims are bad. Islam is bad because religion is bad. So then what's next? What's next is, well, you can't say God bless America anymore. So all the people saying, oh, yeah, they're banning the hijab, God bless whatever the country is. Well, maybe the people who enact such a policy don't want you to say God bless any longer. This is the problem. France was founded on anti-religion. The whole country, the whole Republic of France. Hello, Gary. The whole. Hello, Chris Peters. Are you from Belgium? Don't forget, guys, you can give me a call at my Discord. I'm going to put the link in the chat. You are always welcome to ask me questions. And I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time addressing the comments that I get for my videos, because I get a lot of comments. yesterday I was watching a live streamed panel discussion. It was a panel. It's part of the Dylan Burns panel discussions. I'm not a left winger, and these panel discussions typically have lefties, or actually they always have lefties. But they will have one right winger or 3 or 4 right wingers or conservatives in the panel discussion. Hello, BP Calf Crusader. But anyway, I watch these panel discussions because it gives me an idea to the political climate of America. And you watch, the liberals argue and the conservatives, or conservative, because sometimes they'll have one conservative there, and the conservative side will argue, and they go back and forth, and this and that, and et cetera, and they start arguing. Well, they had a panel discussion on religion and politics, and they had this panel discussion. Sup, bigots? Hello, Pano Costuros. Is that how you pronounce your name? So they were having this panel discussion about religion and politics, and the left-wing side were talking about how religion can be toxic to government policy. Some of the liberals were more sympathetic. They were like, well, religion does have a good place in society. It does things like social justice. It does help. Churches are very active with getting Black Americans, African Americans to go out and vote. So some of them were a little bit sympathetic, but pretty much all of them were sympathetic to Sodom, and they were saying, religion is bad because it can promote policy against Sodom, policy against the LGBT community. And one of the guys in the panel discussion, he's some kind of a Twitch streamer. He goes by the name of Doogly, I don't remember. But this guy was basically saying that he wants, not basically, he explicitly said, I want to see religion wiped out. And this is the type of terminology that he used. He said, I want to see religion wiped out. And then he said, I don't want to see people dead. I don't want to kill people because of their religious beliefs. I just want to see religion wiped out. And the question is, how can you wipe religion out without killing people? That's literally impossible. It's literally impossible. And I think it's very insincere and dishonest to say, well, I don't want to kill people. I just want to see religion wiped out. Because damn very well that it's literally impossible to wipe religion out without killing people. It is impossible. Sean, he was just joking, okay? It's not a big deal. He's just joking. I understand his humor. So yeah, like there's no way that you could wipe out religion without killing people, because then you say, well, we want to purge society. We want to purge society from religion. People can no longer worship God or whatever. Get rid of the churches and all this stuff. What people are going to resist. People are going to resist, and then guess what's going to happen? In order for the government to actually enact this policy of wiping religion out, tons of people are literally going to die. Tons of people are going to be executed. They're going to be shot. There's going to be riots. And then people are going to argue and say, well, if people are going to resist, then I can understand that they're going to get shot because they're resisting. It's like, well, what do you want people to do? Just to bend over backwards and let you just give it to them? Just bend over backwards and let you oppress their right to religious belief and faith? People will die. But here's the thing that worried me, is looking at this panel discussion. There were some big streamers there. There was some guy who calls himself Vadim or whatever, and then you had Vaush. Vaush is a big left-wing streamer. Then you had this Doogly guy or whatever, and you're listening to them, and none of the left-wingers, or most of the left-wingers, didn't say, hey, that's not good. And that really tells me about what the future of the left is. The future of the left is being severely anti-religious. Hold on one second, guys. My goodness. Hold on. I gotta get something here. Hold on. Be right back. Dad, like 5 minutes ago. This is the problem with live streaming. Stuff happens in the middle of the video. Ted, you should read Nihilism, The Root of the Revolution to the Modern Age by Eugene Rose. It is a 100-ish page treatise on liberalism, progression, and ultimate chaos. I will read this. I will definitely get this book and read it. Written in 1963. It's extremely accurate. Whatever you persecute, you just make bigger. Yep, very true. Many of the people who claim they want to peacefully wipe out religion also claim they just want to get rid of the ideas that make religion possible. Yes, they make these claims, but they're not. Everything works on paper. Everything works in theory. Like, I want to see religion gone. Well, people have been religious since the dawn of time. Well, I don't care. I want to. And then they'll make this argument and say, well, slavery was here since the dawn of time. We got rid of slavery. No, we didn't. We still have slavery. Religion has been here since the dawn of time. People have been religious since forever. You can't just say, I want religion wiped out. It should be gone. And you can never say that you want religion completely absent in government either. That's impossible. Even if you have a secular society, it's impossible to remove religion from the government. It's just impossible. Even when you look at a country as secular as France, there's still religious belief that goes on. People still will reference Christianity in France, or they'll reference the Catholic culture in France. Even in the French Revolution, people had religious aspirations. Deism, they were deists. They were definitely people who talked about a civic religion. Robespierre was one of them. They were people like Bertrand Barrère, who talked about consecrating children to the state and having a religion of the fatherland, which is very nationalistic. Atheism can be very cultish. I mean, I can guarantee you, if America was enforced to become a secular society, completely secular society, right, and they wanted to just like wipe out religion, we would be seeing in dedication to Charles Darwin. We would have candles being lit for Charles Darwin. Richard Dawkins would be a saint. Christopher Hitchens, Saint Christopher. Like, they would make a whole religion out of it. Because here is the thing about mankind. Mankind eventually gets tired of materialism. This is the way I look at things. It's what I call the revolution of the spirit. This is what I call the revolution of the spirit. Mankind cannot live a life of materialism completely. If you, let's say, tell a society, listen, have sex anytime you want, have orgies, do whatever you break all the rules, break all the barriers. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is taboo. Just defile everything, right? At first, society would break out. Society would just be like, yeah, we're tired of these rules. We want to live our lives. And they'll just do whatever they want. But guess what happens? They get saturated with it. They get saturated with degeneracy. They get saturated with materialism and this sort of libertine way of living. And then they want something beyond that. And humans will gravitate towards that which transcends the material. What I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought. Mankind will search for something because mankind ultimately is searching for meaning. The purpose of life is not what the flesh wants. It may seem that way at times, that is the purpose of living. It may seem that is the end goal of life. But then you come to grips with the fact that you're going to die. And when you come to grips with that, it's like, well, that baseball card collection doesn't really seem so great anymore. Video games, no, those aren't really so much fun as they used to be. Movies, I enjoy watching films, but they're not as fun when you start thinking about the fact that you're going to die. What brings consolation and comfort to the reality of death and what brings meaning to life is the fact that there is something on the other side, the fact that there is something that transcends the material world. And mankind naturally wants order. If we have chaos, if we saturate ourselves in chaos, we will naturally begin to seek for order. It's like the same, and I may sound like Jordan Peterson here, but it's like the same reason why, sometimes you get up and you say, I need to clean up my room, and you clean up your room. Why? Because you're looking for that symmetry. You're looking for that order. It really does work that way. It's like the Weimar Republic. People talk about the Weimar Republic, and they'll say that there's a lot of degeneracy in the Weimar Republic, and there was a lot of degeneracy, and there was a lot of weirdness in the Weimar Republic, and people began to search for order. They couldn't rely on government anymore. They wanted something that could instill some sort of moral order. And then they they voted in for the Nazis. So people can go from one extreme to the next, or when one extreme is the dominant position or the dominant condition of a society, people will begin to go to another extreme, and that is the danger. There needs to be some kind of middle ground. There needs to be some kind of harmony between your earthly life and your spiritual life. The cult of Mao. Yes, absolutely, man. Yeah, Stalin had a cult, still does. There's people in Russia. Hello, Danish person. TikTok. Okay, you're trolling. Oh, we got a troll. You got confessions. Looks like we got a troll, guys. Oh, you're not a troll. Okay. Well, anyway, welcome to the club. Say hello. Anyway, so people search for order, and this is why the idea of living this completely materialistic lifestyle is not viable. It's not sustainable. People are going to search for order. What happens when people, hello, Kovrig Theodore, hello, and you're in France, so hello from America. So anyway, the condition of mankind, searching for order. This is a very deep reality. The problem when religion is enforced in a society, the problem with that is that the religion itself becomes like a well-oiled machine, and people get bored of the religion, right? So it's like, well, on Friday you can't eat meat. Well, on Wednesday you can't eat meat, and on this day you got to go to church for this feast day. And the problem is, people start saying, well, we do this every year, and they just do it to get it out of the way. They do it because, well, their parents want them to do it, or they're afraid of going to hell, or it's just a thing to do. And it becomes monotonous for people, and they get oh my god, I knew one day, I knew if I'm going to be doing this live stream every week, I know I'm going to get the weirdos. I know I'm going to be getting the weird. The weirdos have come in, guys. The secret is out. This can't be a safe place anymore. This can't be a safe space for people like me anymore. That's it. The weirdos have found us out. They always do. I guess I bring that out of people. I don't know. No, I'm talking about real weirdos, Pano, like not Christian weirdos. But anyway. Anyway, guys, what was I gonna say? You got kicked off of YouTube like 6 times. You're not one to talk. Hold on. Pano, if you want to debate this, man, call me up on Discord. Call me up on Discord if you want. If you want to have a discussion on this, because the reason why I got kicked off YouTube so many times is because of the weirdos who dominate this network. That's the reason why. I do a lot of live streaming, and they're there. Unfortunately, yeah, they can be entertaining. Yes, absolutely. Alberto Fujimori was president of Peru in the 1990s. Yes, and Alberto Fujimori was a psychopath. Somebody has just joined the Discord. Sweet Home, Alabama. Absolutely. I'm on Discord. DevKev. Sounds like a Middle Eastern name. Hello. But anyway, so mankind rebels because they get sick and tired of the well-oiled machine of a religious institution. It becomes monotonous. Not just Satanists, man. Dude, YouTube. Okay, I'm gonna get to this in a minute because I've been discovering some weird shit on YouTube. That's just horrible. I don't know why it even exists. But mankind rebels. They're tired of this monotonous way of doing religion. And then, oh no. Oh, the weirdo wants to talk. Should I do it, guys? If you want to call, okay, man. I'll entertain you for a bit. If you want to call, DevKev, tell me about your religion, and we'll talk. I knew this was going to happen. How I call, buddy? If you don't know how to call me, then you're really crazy because it's pretty obvious. There's a button on the thing. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Where are you? You gotta hold on. Okay, I'm gonna try to call this guy. I'll give you a call. Hello? I'm calling you. You can't call me? This dude wants to tell me about his religion. Hello? I've been trying to call you, man. You're not picking up. Hello? Okay, you got to give me a call. There's a little button on the upper part of the screen. It has a little phone icon. Thank you, John. Yeah, he's not picking up. I don't know. He's online. I guess he can't figure out. He's so crazy. He's so hyped up on the drugs right now. He doesn't know how to call. I've been trying to call you, man. No, I've been trying to call you. You're not picking up the phone. He's so hyped up. He's so high off of whiskey. He says he's drinking. I think he said he's. Oh, are you there? Hello.
I am the new guard, right? Because listen to this. I've been drinking whiskey and I'm smoking some nice cannabis now. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for me existing, there's no way this universe would exist. Because I was, do you know what I mean? If I didn't exist to know it existed, then it wouldn't be here.
So where are you from?
Kev Jackson from England, born and bred.
You're pure Anglo-Saxon.
I'll kill Saxons all day long.
Oh, you're not a Saxon.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't go to school.
So tell me about your religion.
So my religion at the moment on Fridays consists of drinking whiskey, smoking an ounce of weed, and joining the good folk YouTube to spread my religion that every motherfucker should drink whiskey on Fridays.
So is this the religion of England?
No, this is the invasion of the planet.
Is this the religion of England, though? The official religion of whiskey drinking?
No. This is a Corona religion. The Corona balls make this up.
Are you? What kind of whiskey are you drinking? Is it?
So what happened is, I'm drinking Scotch blend whiskey, right? Well, 5 weeks ago, what happened is, I caught Corona because I was walking on the streets drunk after a fag, and I got a fag off someone, and I smoked it, and it made all my mouth blister, and then I got ulcers under my tongue, like my tongue swollen up, they're crazy. For 5 weeks, like a mutant, yeah. And then we've decided it's Corona tongue, and we've got a religion for it.
So is it true that you English guys fight each other all the time, like after soccer games and shit? Because I saw a movie, it was called Hoodlums.
I beat up my dad when I was like 16. So yeah, of course it's true. I beat my dad up, he's beat me up, and you know what I mean? Yeah.
You beat your dad up, mate.
Yeah, he fucking headbutted me, so I banged him one.
What was the fight over?
Because my mum needed some medication.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, Dad, you best go home and help me mum. And he's like, oh well, and he's pissed out his head sitting next to a woman, obviously wanting to get on with this. I was like, Dad, and then he fucking headbutted me.
Right. So the new religion, how can you spread your religion when it's like you can't even like handle, or your family is dysfunctional?
Listen, I hit him so hard with my righteous fist that he went flying into the bush.
Right, but it sounds pretty dysfunctional, don't you think?
But it's not just that, right? Listen, my religion is pretty typical because at the moment we're on 40% whiskey.
Someone's laughing in the background. Someone's laughing in the background. Is that like your nun, or is that the patriarchus of the new church?
No, this is my pet. She's chained up now. Let's see.
She's
chained up.
What?
Yeah, this is your pet. She's chained up.
Your pet?
There we go. Said
Oh, she's.
Yeah, this is how you...
I hope you're joking about that. The thing about being chained up.
Well, I'm trying to give her this Corona tongue at the moment. I think she's immune. She's believing in it.
Okay, buddy. Is there anything else you want to tell me about your new religion? Oh, what's your view on Brexit? What's your view on Brexit?
Yeah, we should kick everyone out of the country who wasn't born here, and the families weren't born here.
Right. Are you for Boris Johnson and all them?
Fuck Boris, man. I'd smash Boris right now.
Why? So why do you hate Boris Johnson? Because he's not racist enough, or what?
Because he's not clever enough. He's not streetwise.
Gotcha.
If he walked down my street, he'd get jumped, and yeah, he doesn't brush his hair.
Right. Are you so you want to throw out all the foreigners?
Yes, not because I'm racist, but because they steal all the jobs and do all the jobs no one else can be asked to do. If it wasn't for them doing all the jobs I couldn't be asked to do, yeah, there'd be a job there for me.
So are you a high IQ Anglo?
I am a game developer.
You're a what?
Content creator. I'm a game developer, music producer, and content creator.
So you're high IQ?
I've got an IQ quite high. I smoke loads of weed.
I don't know. By the sounds of by listening to you, don't sound very high IQ.
I fucking smoke loads of weed. I'm smoking another one. No, mate, I've got high.
How can you have a high IQ? You're frying your brain cells with marijuana.
Oh, man, you smoke more high than you get, obviously.
Yeah, but you're frying your brain cells with all that stuff. You're ruining your high IQ.
Fake news, mate. Fake news, right? I swear down. Bob Marley.
No, Bob Marley. Look at him. He was mind fried. That dude was freaking mind fried. What are you talking about? That guy had all sorts of weird ideas until he realized that he needed God in his life.
Yeah, that sunstroke. He was in the sun too much. He burned.
Yeah, but you English people have no sun, so you have vitamin D deficiencies.
Yeah, we drink orange juice.
Yeah, but I think you guys need some sun.
Yeah, we get some sun here and there. It's global warming.
Why is England so depressing? It seems like a very depressing country to me, though. Everything's cloudy and everyone's mean to each other.
Truthfully, England is depressing, and I wish I wasn't born here. But the planet Earth is depressing.
But where do you wish you were born?
Probably like Mars.
In Mars?
Yeah, I am an orb that floats around who doesn't need to eat and drink.
Okay. So Right. So the way that you sound like, I mean, I think maybe England needs some more foreigners to kind of balance it out, because I think you guys are a little bit too off the off the handle.
No. We don't need any more foreigners. We're nearly in war at the moment. We're going to go through civil war because of them.
You think there's going to be a civil war in England? But you guys, do you guys have enough guns? Do you guys have enough guns?
Yeah, we use bow and arrows.
Oh yeah, like true Anglos, huh?
By law, right? The Queen's law is every man needs to go train for 1 hour with bow and arrow. No joke.
So you guys have the longbows ready?
Yeah. Recyclable, like tree safe ones.
Mm-hmm. Employed right now? Is that why? Is that why you hate foreigners, or what?
No. I'm self-employed. I'm a game developer.
Oh yeah, what games have you developed?
Listen to this. Big shout out this game. Everyone who's watching, if there's anyone watching, right? The first game I ever released was called Crackhead.
Cracker?
Crackhead. I'll write it on the chat.
Crackhead. Okay. And you're a music producer? What kind of music do you make? You make like house trance music or something?
Yeah, just all my shit. Like whatever I feel like when I'm stoned.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it sounds like something a drug addict would listen to, like when someone's high off LSD. I'm gonna I'm gonna assume.
Oh yeah, it was made on LSD.
Yeah, I could tell. I think you're on drugs right now. I don't think it's just whiskey, mate.
No, whiskey's making me right, but let's say people search Crackhead on Steam, you'll see it on there.
Okay. All right then. Do you have anything else to say about your religion?
Yeah, follow it or you will burn in hell.
All right. I'll see you later. Okay. All right. Okay. I think. Hold on. How do I end? Did I end this call? Yeah, I ended the call. Okay. I think we're out. Well, that was interesting. Any more weirdos want to call in? That's the Brexiters, everyone. That's the Brexiters. Hello. Let's see here. That's England, I guess. I guess everyone in England is a crackhead now or on LSD. Okay, see you later, Cat. Furthermore, okay. Anybody else want to call in? I'll put the link in the chat. You guys can call me up on Discord. Check out Mitunes on my YouTube account. Okay. How did this dude find me? I noticed like more and more Europeans listen to me than Americans. I think at least on YouTube. I think it's because oh, Catman is calling. Let's talk to Catman. Hello.
Hey.
Hello, Catman.
I'm doing good.
Are you Julius on the chat?
Yes.
Okay. How are you? How's your Friday going?
Doing good.
That's good.
I mean, that was funny. Oh my god, he was high as a kite.
High, or maybe I don't know. Maybe it's more than marijuana.
It has to be. God, but it was funny. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
I agree with you on Marine Le Pen.
Mm-hmm.
That lady's crazy.
Well, she's part of the new right apparatus.
That's still crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. She's part of that whole ideological sphere.
Oh yeah, the right wing in the European world is completely different than the one here.
American conservatism still has some sort of like Christian influence. The problem with European conservatism is that JJ the man, I'm gonna call right now, but I'll give you a call after this one, okay? No. I'm telling someone else. Someone else is trying to call. And yeah, so I'll give you a call after this is over. But anyway, yes, the problem with European right wingism is that there's too much of a root in nationalism and people can get a little too, they can get a little too much. England has also the high percentage. Anyway, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do want to make a comment.
Sure.
I did watch your video yesterday. I pretty much agree with you 100% that Macron is trying to appeal to the right wingers.
Yeah.
It's not going to be very good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it could be that the right is just going to get so upset at immigration that they're just going to vote for someone whose whole platform is anti-immigration.
Exactly. That's what's coming to. I pretty much see that because next year you're going to have the elections and stuff. So we definitely have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should always keep our eyes out on Europe. Europe has such an influence over the world. Europe has always had a very big effect on the world for a very long time.
Yeah, I'm in pretty much agreement with you on that one too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's unavoidable. I mean, it's if something happens in Europe, it's going to affect the whole world. And you can make the same argument. You can make a similar argument about the United States. Like if America ever hit a civil war, it would affect the whole world as well. It's because America's empire controls the world, much of the world. But the thing about Europe is that if a war hits Europe, it will. It's just I don't know how exactly to explain it. It's like Europe has this hold on the world. America has to do something about it eventually because Europe. Somebody's just bad mouthing the European Union. Europe has such an important geopolitical position that if Europe got torn apart, then something would have to be done to stabilize it. Is what I would say. Something would have to be done. And that's why America always gets involved eventually when stuff happens over there.
Oh yeah.
No. So Europe. So somebody said Europe is the powder keg of the world. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's about right.
Well, Europe. Like, if you look at all the empires of the world, pretty much all of them are European. Like all the major empires, most of them are European.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
the British.
French, yeah, that's right. The Dutch.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The Dutch.
Turkey too. You
might
put them in there as well.
Well, Turkey is like half European, really. Like half of Turkey belongs to Europe.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so there's such a huge a source of power in Europe that for that continent to go into instability would be it would just be very dangerous. It would pull the whole world into it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I pretty much want to say I completely agree with you. And another thing that I want to ask, how can I get in touch with rescuechristians.org?
So we kind of changed the way that it works. We kind of centralized everything to shoebot.com. If you want, in what way do you want to get in contact? Because you can just write me, and that'll be fine. If you want, you can write Andrew B. Azad. If you go on shoebot.com, there's a contact button there, and it'll be right there for you.
Okay, that's basically what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
All
right, man. JJ the man, I'll give you a call. I'm trying to call you up. But anyway, yeah, we're getting more and more people wanting to. Oh, there he is. Hello, JJ the man.
Hey, how's it going, Ty?
I'm doing good, man. Yourself?
I'm doing good. So, as I started seeing these lives that you were doing, I was going to suggest, have you looked at using StreamYard at all? StreamYard is pretty good with having other callers call in and things like that.
StreamYard?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now. Does it cost money?
There is actually a free version, but the thing is, it'll have like a logo on it. But I think a monthly plan is like very low cost.
Yeah.
I've seen other YouTubers use it, and it's pretty good because you can have the chat going on YouTube.
Yeah.
Other people can call in via video, or if they just want to do voice, they can do that.
Screen sharing? It has screen sharing?
I believe so, yes. Yeah. I've seen other people use it, so.
I think I'm just going to do that then, because I've always wanted to do like a screen sharing presentation where I could show like different articles and videos and things like that. It's just more entertaining.
It's more entertaining, and at the same time, it's more convenient because, yeah, that feature is actually there now that I remember.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Cool. What's up, everybody? I'm actually one of the people who's calling from America. I'm not one of your international. But
that's good. Finally,
I wanted to point that out there.
Finally, some sanity. No.
Right. No, I just wanted to say that, I really appreciate, you putting your perspective out there in your voice.
Thank you.
Honestly, no problem. Honestly, I say there's times where we can agree to disagree. But, most of the things that you say in general, it's very spot on. And I say that because I remember you talking about the pro-life movement and how that in itself is more of a movement to get money, which is sad because it's one of those things that I think that as Catholics and as Christians, it's something that should be default. It's not something that you just choose to believe. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So it makes me sad to know that something that should be by default, I think all human life is precious, whether you're a Christian or not. That's something that should basically be the norm.
Right.
And it's sad because people take that opportunity to advance their own political agenda and make money off of it.
Yes.
So when you say that these people will have these movements and these groups, I think about it because you see them, they wear their very fancy clothing. They're always at these rallies and things like that. But you would never see them supporting, let's say, a local pro-life group and things like that. It's
right, yeah.
This big name, big donors. I'm going to talk to this politician to see if they can support me.
Right.
If they don't screw them, we'll give money to someone else. And it's this game with, where money's involved. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I can't really support that, because in one way, yes, you're defending the unborn, but then on the other hand, you don't care if people wear masks, for example.
Exactly, yeah.
You don't care about the elderly.
Exactly, yeah. And the other thing also that I've noticed about the pro-life movement is that anytime someone tries to push for like actual legislation that would prohibit abortion, they try to strike it. Almost every time this happens, they try to strike it down. It down, and they say, "Well, we're not at that point yet. America's not ready for that." That happened in Oklahoma. I remember years ago. There was a guy, I forget his name, but he was like a member. He was the leader of the pro-life movement in Oklahoma. His name was Anthony something, I don't remember. And he said that, well, America's not ready for that yet. We're not ready for that right now. So he struck it. He not only did he strike it down, but he encouraged all of the senators of the state to also reject it, and most of the senators rejected it. So that's the thing that always bothered me about it always bothered me about the pro-life movement. Even when Donald Trump, and I give credit to Donald Trump when he was campaigning, and he said, well, listen, if abortion is illegal, I agree that there should be some kind of punishment for people who do abortions. Like there needs to be some punishment for that, because if it's against the law, then there needs to be a punishment. And the pro-life movement just trashed Trump for that. And that was the one time that I really agreed with Trump. That was one of the few times that I really agreed with him and said, no, we should get behind him for that. And I think that if the pro-life movement really came in the droves to support Trump for that, Trump would have seen that, hey, me saying this gets me this people's support. So he would have pushed further towards that route. He would have pushed further in favor for the pro-life movement. And that's the thing. I think the pro-life movement had a really good opportunity there, but they instead condemned Trump for saying that, and that was the problem.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd like to add is that I feel that if you say that you're pro-life, that should also encompass people after the womb. Things
Yes.
like having support for people who are struggling, people who suffer from disabilities and things like that. That's also important. And I feel that many times that is brought up, it gets ignored, which is sad because I get that the importance of letting people know, you know, the unborn lives do matter. I think every life, whatever stage it is, and you could be 103, your life still matters.
Right.
That should really be at the forefront. And I really think that what has to happen is there has to be a shift towards more like a Catholic social teaching type.
Yes.
Thing, I guess you could say, where it's not just about one thing, but it's about these other things that impact the human person in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Even with things like with immigration, you know, you hear these stories of people like, for example, I remember years ago hearing these. There are these activists who will put water bottles in the buffer zone in La Frontera, you know, the buffer zone between Mexico and the U.S. Because in case somebody is, you know, stuck in the desert, they have something to drink, and people will go out there and pick up the bottles and throw them away, or because they said, well, we don't want to encourage illegal immigration, but it's like somebody could die out there. You know, they don't keep that in mind. You know, so they don't keep that in mind. Like people can die out there. There isn't really a whole lot of. I feel like the conservative movement doesn't really have a whole lot of Christianity when it comes to immigration. That's the one thing I wish that they would. One position I wish they would change on. They say, well, the left is that way. Well, it's like, well, maybe if Christians took more of a firm stance on immigration, the left wouldn't co-opt it so much.
And, right. And I've seen it myself too. So where I am, there's this huge, every city I've known that there's like a central traditional Catholic parish, you can call it. Mm-hmm. Every city you can find one. In mine, I went to one. And I was actually staying for like a little meeting they had. They discussed, you know, different topics and things like that. Uh-huh. One day I stayed for the mass. After the mass, I overheard someone talk about immigration. Uh-huh. This woman kept saying things like, well, all these immigrants are coming here and they're giving birth, and none of the American women are giving birth here. And this is going to be a problem and all this stuff, and using this voice. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, if this is what people who consider stand for, mm-hmm. I don't want to be part of it because that's really evil if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing is that the problem with the trad Catholics, I've been around a lot of trad Catholics, and the problem with them is that they'll have like the good mass, they'll have the proper old school Latin, but they, as far as the Christian teachings of compassion, a lot of them, they'll go towards the route of almost callousness. Not all of them, but a lot of them do, and that's what scares me about them. Hello. I think I lost him. Try to call him back. His bad connection. Pro-lifers are mostly cucks. Hello.
Hi, Ken.
Oh, this is people video. Oh my god, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Hold on, I'm doing good. Hold on, someone's trying to call up. Let me just tell him. JJ the man, I'll give you a call right when I'm done with this. Hold on a second here. I'll give you a call back. I will. Oh, anyway, so JJ Pereira. By your last name, I'm gonna say Portuguese, Brazilian.
Yeah, I'm Portuguese, but originally from the background.
Interesting.
Portuguese, yeah.
Interesting. Are you from like Kerala or one of those areas with Portuguese influence?
Very close.
Goa. Okay.
I've got relatives.
Yeah, the Portuguese made their print in South Asia, because I know that East Timor has a lot of Portuguese influence. That's Indonesia.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah. Yes. Yeah, they built a lot of churches along the coastline, and they were very good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Portuguese were there first, then the British came and just took everything.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, up to a certain point, I mean, they did hold on to that territory in Goa,
Uh-huh.
but, and a lot of the people in Goa didn't want to go along with India, but eventually India just went in and annexed it. You know, Portugal couldn't do anything. So
Right.
yeah.
Do you have a question or a comment?
No, I just want to say hi. You know,
Oh,
I just
okay.
wanted to try out this channel, and I've been listening to you for the last, I think, 2 years. So
No, that's cool.
just wanted to, yeah,
Um,
and really enjoy your takes on history, on current events. So yeah,
I appreciate that very much. You're living in the U.S., or if you don't want to say, it's okay.
yes, I'm living in the U.S.
Oh, okay. And you're a Catholic, I assume.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So being from India, I've always loved the different like recipes and things like that. Are you into cooking those, or does somebody else cook it for you?
Yeah, I'm into cooking. I'm into cooking as well. So yeah.
What's that dish they have in? Go ahead.
I think last time it was a year ago or something that you had shared a recipe. You said it was like Pakistani inspired.
Oh yes, yes, nahari.
Nihari, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
very tasty.
I've tasted Nihari when I was in the Middle East. So I was
Oh, wow.
born in the Middle East.
Oh wow, which part?
Yeah, in Dubai. I was in Dubai.
Oh,
For
cool.
quite a while.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I like Dubai. It was good, good time.
Do you speak Arabic?
Shui, not a lot.
Oh, gotcha.
but I can kind of follow. I can read Arabic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. What's that one dish where they take mustard greens and like blend it all together? I forgot what it was called.
The Indian dish.
It's an Indian dish. They dip it with bread, non-bread, but it's like a bunch like mustard greens boiled.
Is it raita or something?
No.
No.
I can look it up real quick. Hold on. Indian.
Sure.
I forget what it is. Real quick. Saj.
Oh, sag. Yeah, sag. Yeah, that's spinach, right? Or is it? I thought it was spinach for some reason.
Oh, I was always told that it was mustard greens traditionally, but people eat spinach. It doesn't really matter.
Okay. Yeah.
But have you tried that? Is that good?
Yeah, I tried that. Yeah. It's good. It's good. Yeah, if you're into like vegetarian dishes,
right.
I think sag is one of the top 10. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super popular over there. I tried making it one time, but it came out okay, but it wasn't that great.
Yeah, it takes a while to kind of get used to it. So.
Yeah, a lot of spices and things like that.
A lot of spices.
Yeah.
I think the south you go, it gets spicier.
The more south you go.
The more south you go, yeah.
What's the difference between the North Indian culture and the South Indian culture?
Difference. I guess the language is different, and I think in the south of India, people are already kind of exposed to a cosmopolitan, so they're more used to like foreigners and all that.
The South.
So yeah, in the South.
Oh wow.
They're much more friendlier, I guess. When you go up north, it's kind of very Hindu dominated, and yeah. So they've got a very nationalistic, approach. That's probably why you're seeing the rise of nationalism now in India, like
because of what? Because of the North?
Yeah, it's the North. I mean, the BJP is basically a north-based.
Right.
And they're very Hindu nationalistic, and they want to kind of go back to, they call it the ancient way. They call it that. Yeah.
The Aryan, the Aryan religion, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly.
Do the Southerners see themselves as ethnically different because the North has more of that? They look different than the Southerners, so they see themselves as different. Do they see the Northerners?
There is traditionally a divide that way. They always say North and South. So
gotcha.
Yeah, and even when you look at it linguistically too, the language is kind of Dravidian. They call the Dravidian languages.
Right, Dravidian. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I spent some time.
I think there's a movement trying to say that it's all bogus, but.
Well, the Southerners will argue that the Northerners, their descendants were basically like in some kind of Indo-Aryan people. They came from Iran. They came from the
Yeah.
And then they invaded India.
Yep. I think certain DNA tests have proven that theory actually.
Yeah.
So,
well, DNA studies have shown that a lot of Indians, believe it or not, are ethnically related to Ukrainians.
Oh, to Ukrainians.
Yeah, people in Ukraine and Belarus because of the fact that there is that Indo-European relation.
I see.
Yeah. It's super fascinating subject.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's definitely a lot of mixture that has happened in India because you go all throughout India, you'll see, a lot of people who kind of, there's European-looking people, there's kind of really dark people. Then you have, when you go to the Northeast, there's like people resembling Chinese, and so it's very diverse. But I think what Hinduism did is they kind of united all of them into one.
Mm-hmm. What I was told by someone who lives in India is that you have to see India as not a country, but as a continent unto itself. Yeah, because there's so many different languages and things like that.
Right. They call it a subcontinent, so.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I got a lot of weirdos writing me right now. I knew this day was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I said, man, if I keep doing this live stream thing, because before I would do it like sporadically. I would do it when I felt like it. Now I'm like, maybe I should do it. Maybe I should do a live stream once a week. And it's like, I know the weirdos are going to. This was my biggest concern doing live streams. Like, I know they're going to pop up. I know it. And
yeah, I know the last guy. I mean,
well, I got more of them who want to call in. Oh yeah, I know. I got more of them who want to call in.
Oh no.
Yeah, because some English guy called in saying he wants to get rid of all the foreigners, and I think maybe England needs some foreigners with people like you. Maybe they need a little. Maybe the foreigners will put some sanity in the place.
Some sanity, yeah.
Yeah, because some of these people are nuts.
Right. There's definitely a lot of people in England. A lot of Indian people, Indian Pakistanis.
In England, yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, in England, yeah.
Some guy who calls himself Tranny Lives Matter wants to talk. This is okay. Tranny lives. I'll give you a call if you want to talk. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. But anyway, are you into? I'm guessing you're into reading a lot about like Indian history and is it true what they say about the British? Were the British that bad, or were they okay? Like, what's the reality of that, you think?
So depending on the region, so I guess you go to North India, it was really bad there.
Uh-huh.
I'd say. Yeah. So what we were taught, when we were in school, like so our teacher, the history teacher, his father served under the British regiment.
Mm-hmm.
So he was saying that they used to have separate, like they'll keep Indians separate. And apparently they used to have boards saying no dogs and Indians allowed.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they did practice certain atrocities north of India. But when you move down south, I think the kings of the south were much more friendlier to the British. They weren't fighting them as much.
I see.
So as a result, they were, I guess, there was less of a crackdown by the British.
I see. So the Northerners had it the worst because they were more resistant.
They had it the worst. Yeah.
I gotcha.
That's why when you read the Indian history, the struggle for independence, I think a lot of it was concentrated up north.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
that doesn't mean that in the South they didn't share the sentiments of wanting to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
So they did. Eventually, they all came together.
Mm-hmm.
And wanted the British out.
Mm-hmm.
As such, colonialism definitely was taking a toll on the land.
Mm-hmm.
and a handful of British, they're not able to rule a lot of Indians together, at the same time.
Yeah, what I've heard is that the British wanted tea, so they discovered some area in India. I don't remember exactly where it was. I think it was near Sri Lanka or something. But they said, okay, we're going to grow tea here because the land is conducive to tea growing, and they just forced a bunch of people to work in the fields, and a lot of people died.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. There was a lot of forced slavery that went on in India because the British wanted to produce tea. They wanted massive tea production, and they wanted to use India. If you look at the tea industry in England today,
well, I know in Ceylon, like in Sri Lanka, they used to call it Ceylon.
Mm-hmm.
They used to. There's a lot of tea gardens there,
mm-hmm.
and the British were definitely there. And my grandfather, long time ago, like he worked in this tea estate in Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he worked in a tea.
Yeah, in the tea estate as one of the machine operators.
Think of the British and the tea industry.
Well, he was, I think he was happy with them. And
okay.
Treated him well. Yeah.
I think it all depends on how you, because I think it depends on how your what your character is, I guess, because my grandfather lived under British colonialism in the West Bank when the Holy Land was under the control of the British, and the British soldiers they could be mean if you messed with them. If you messed with them, and my grandfather would say, well, sometimes they'd hit you with the butt of a rifle. If you ever met them, yeah. If you were kind of resistant to them, you didn't listen. It's like a police officer. Sometimes when you badmouth a cop or you act smart with the cop, you put yourself at risk. The cop could beat you. Things like that happen.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to India?
Yeah. I've been.
And is it a cool place, or you wouldn't live there?
I mean, it's okay. I mean, you got family there, friends there. It's a great place.
Mm-hmm.
But I prefer the rural India over the cities. The
mm-hmm.
city is kind of polluted and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get a chance to go outside the city to the rural area, that's where I guess the real India is. So yeah, you can kind of see the natural beauty and
yes. Yeah, India is the thing that's so fascinating about India is the fact that it's such a fertile place. You go there and it's like you could grow anything there.
Exactly, you can grow anything there. Exactly.
And
everything grows there too. So yeah.
Some guy.
Yeah, if you're a farmer, you would enjoy it. Yeah.
The guy who says tranny lives matter. He says his life is in danger and that he's stuck in an elevator. Oh God, come on.
Oh no.
I don't know. I don't know if people have too much time on their hands or if they're really insane. Like they're seriously insane.
I guess it's Friday, so
it's like all the weirdos come out. Anytime you have a live stream where you're talking about like religion, politics, or anything pertaining to that, it's just you have to expect it.
Right.
Pretty soon I'm gonna get the Hindu nationalist. I know it. I know it.
Yeah.
I've gotten a bunch of them already. Hindu nationalists want to argue.
I bet they'll come and say, you got a Catholic. Catholics are the worst.
Well, so what do you think of the Hindu nationalist arguments? Because the arguments that I hear from them basically go something like this: Christians, missionaries bring in a terrible influence. They are exploiting the people of India. They need to be gotten rid of. That's essentially the argument that I hear from them.
That is their argument. Because what the Christian missionaries did, so there's already a system that's existing in India called the caste system. And it's very strong in the northern part of India. So it's kind of ingrained into the society. So you have these upper class people who basically treat the people from the lower class as untouchables.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of evident, when you go there. So what the Christian missionaries did is they started educating them, giving them, schooling, getting them to find jobs,
mm-hmm.
earn their own living, as opposed to doing the menial work that according to their caste, they're supposed to do, and that creates a social upset, right? It upsets the system that they already have, and that's why the Christian missionaries, they get a lot of, a lot of heat. And I guess there's a lot of Catholic priests, Catholic nuns who, get caught up in that crossfire.
Right. Yeah. I remember years ago reading a story about a nun that was gang raped by these Hindu thugs. Yeah. Which reminds me, the word thug actually comes from India. Thuggy. The Thuggies. Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Great movie. Yeah.
It's a great film. But what I have heard is that when that movie came out, the Hindus were they just lost it. And I think they didn't allow it to be shown in India. I'm pretty sure. I don't think they should. I think they had to ban it because there was so much controversy around it. Scene in the movie where Indiana Jones said, and this is my favorite scene in the film, where Indiana Jones, prepare to meet Kali in hell. I mean, that's blasphemous though to them.
I know it is.
Because I mean, they worship.
There are devotees of Kali. Kali is kind of like a cult. Mm-hmm. I mean, not all Hindus worship Kali, but
yeah,
there is a cult of Kali that they do all sorts of black magic and all that. So
yeah, I remember hearing a story years ago about a guy who ran some kind of a business in India. It was like a company of some sort in a rural area, and he was murdering his own employees, and he had an altar of Kali in his office.
Oh,
yeah, and he was hoping that it would bring him good luck for his business.
Good luck or prosperity.
Right. Have you ever heard the traditional Hindu music? I forget. I don't remember the name of it. It's basically when they go they go into this kind of trance sound, and they're like, I forget the name of it. Right? What?
Bhajans, they call it
or I'm trying to remember. It's considered the oldest type of music in India that's presently alive.
Classical, is it the classical music? Indian classical.
Yeah, it's part of the Hindu classical tradition. Yes.
They sing it. Yeah, they sing it in the temples. So yeah.
They do mantras.
You hear that when you mantras? Yeah, mantra. Yeah, exactly. Sanskrit mantras that they keep repeating and repeating. They got chants.
Yeah. What is your view on that music? There's a term. Carnatic is in the south, but then there's another form that's in the north. I don't remember. It drives me nuts. I can't remember.
Hindustani music?
Yeah, it's in that Hindustani region.
Yeah, there are different styles.
Yeah, there's Carnatic, and then there's I don't remember that. I'm trying to look it up real quick. But it's super ancient. It's thousands of years old. But I remember I remember listening to years ago. I decided to listen to.
It's very. I would say it's very meditative.
Yes.
It gets you into that into a state of I guess if you want to be still, just listening to it kind of gets you. It's very.
I lost him. What happened?
Oh, okay. Doing and kind of focus on things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember the sitar. They use a sitar sometimes, and
sitar, yeah.
And I remember I think it's called Drupad. I think I found it. Drupad.
Okay, not that familiar with that music.
Hindustani. Well, but I remember listening to sitar music, and I found this YouTube video, and it was like 2 hours of sitar music or something. So I just played it, and man, the sun starts going down, and I start having this feeling of being mind fried. My brain feels fried after a while. I had to turn this music. I said, I got to turn this music off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've listened to that one.
But there is classical Indian music that's really, really nice.
Classical. Yeah.
Very nice.
Indian music is good. Yeah. It's kind of very serene.
Yes, it is. And there's some great, oh man, I wish I had my iTunes list in front of me, because there's some great examples that I can show. There's Hindu classical, but then there is even if you look at Persian classical music, which is still alive and well, I do find similarities between the two, between like some
Persian
of the between Persian and Indian. Yeah, there I do find some similarities. Yeah. I definitely hear how the two connect, because technically, like, Pakistan didn't exist until when? Like 1947 or something?
47, yep.
Yeah. And they're
I think before India got independence, the British, Pakistan, I guess the Muslims called for a nation just for Muslims. So that's how Pakistan came into it.
Right.
So
and
then they were united with India in the whole
right.
And then in the last moment, they said, we want a separate Muslim nation.
Right.
Sometimes I think in a way it's good that they went, their own way.
Right. And so what's fascinating is that, like, what that means is technically India and Iran were bordered together.
Correct.
Yeah, they're right next to each other. So
right next to each other.
It's like if you go to let's say if you go to Texas and you go right near the border, you'll start hearing music that sounds like Mexican music, and because you're right near Mexico, so there's that overlap between the two.
Yeah.
And so I find that when you look at a map and you're like, well, technically Iran and India, they were right next to each other. And then you find out that the Dravidian people were simply the result of Indo-Iranian people coming from Iran, going to India, mixing with the native people there, then creating the Dravidian civilization. It just makes sense that there is an overlap, and then there is some kind of a relation.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes
food, even the foods, if you go up north to the North Indian area, the foods between North India, Pakistan, and Persia kind of overlap.
The food, well, the
because you got the naan, right? The
naan bread,
Persian bread.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Persian bread. Yeah, it has its influence from Persia. They've got this ice cream that they have in India called Faluda. It actually comes from Iran.
Really?
Yeah, Iran's the original ice cream.
I didn't know that. This guy says he's stuck in an elevator and he has no phone signal. But yeah, if you look at like Indian curries and things like that, with the amount of all the spices, it's interesting because if you look at Sumerian food, like, believe it or not, there's some Sumerian recipes that have survived. They actually used, what was it called? What's that spice? It's like they call, what's that famous chicken curry dish that comes from India?
Chicken tikka masala?
No, it was like one of those. It was like, it starts with a
chicken kadai.
I forgot. I think it was masala spice or something. But they actually found these Indian spices with the Sumerians. Yeah, with the Sumerians. So there was a lot of, and then, believe it or not, the Sumerians, if you look at their text, they have there's a country that they mention all the time in their text. It starts with an M. I think it was Mirha. But they say that this was actually India. So there was a lot of trade that was going on.
Trade, yeah.
Yes, and
I believe that.
Yeah, we have actually found these ancient little tablets in Mesopotamia that they're basically like diplomatic documents between the Sumerians and the Dravidians, and we'll find like Dravidian text on them and things like that. So there was a lot of correspondence between the Mesopotamians and the ancient people of India. It's really fascinating.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the India is mentioned in the Bible directly.
Really?
Yeah, in the book of Esther. I think my volume was on a little too loud. In the book of Esther, it's really cool. In the beginning, if you read the first chapter of the book of Esther, it talks about the Persian emperor Ahasuerus, and it says that his domain went all the way to Ethiopia and India. So,
okay. So
right,
the book of Esther. Okay.
The book of Esther, first chapter. Check it out. So it shows that there was this Persian influence in India for a long time.
I mean, even I think if you look at the church, the Catholic Church or the Christian Church in India, the Persian church played a big role in catering to these. They called themselves the St. Thomas Christians. They were actually under the Persian church for a long time.
Oh, wow. I didn't know there was a Persian church.
Yeah, there was a Persian church, but they call the Church of the East, or the Assyrian.
Yes, I've heard of them before. Yes.
Yeah, Church of the East. Yeah. So it went all the way down to South India, and those Christians were basically catered to by the hierarchy of the Church of the East. And then I guess when all the political things happened, the Great Schism and all that, then they were cut off.
Sure. Yeah.
And then then there was a whole mess there.
Yeah. How was there a mess? What do you mean by mess?
So I mean, even today, there's that animosity that still exists between the St. Thomas Christians and the Portuguese. They say that the Portuguese tried to get them directly under Rome, when they were actually more under the Church of the East, or the Church of Antioch. So there's a lot of so essentially, if you go down to Kerala, where I guess the number of Christians are very high in Kerala. So you got three groups. There's the Catholics. There's the among the Catholics, there are three groups. So there's the Latin Catholics. There's the Syro-Malabar Catholics, and then the Syro-Malankara Catholics. The Syro-Malabar Catholics, they follow the Chaldean Church of the East liturgy, and the Syro-Malankara, they follow the Antiochian liturgy. So yeah, and for a long time, they never liked the Latins because they think the Latins came and took over the whole place. But I think the Latins came in and they promoted the propagation of the Christian faith there. So there was a lot of evangelization that took place, from the Jesuits, Francis Xavier.
Yes.
Yeah.
St. Francis of Xavier, yes.
St. Francis Xavier came there. But the other two churches, they were pretty stagnant for a long time. They didn't do much to evangelize. But when they saw that, the Latins, they came in and they did this, there was a lot of animosity. Yeah.
What I have heard is that what's interesting is that, because you bring up St. Francis of Xavier. Francis of Xavier went to Japan, and he did a mission in Japan. And when he first went to Japan, he said that the Japanese people are great. They're really hospitable. They're just wonderful people. And then he left saying these people are heathens. Because the Japanese were very resistant for the most part, they were very resistant to Catholicism, to Christianity. Yes, they were. Yes, well, Japanese Go ahead.
I mean, there were a few communities, right, in Japan.
Yes, there were.
And yeah.
Yes, there was.
Overall, they were also slaughtered, and a lot of them had to leave, and many ended up in Goa. Many of the Japanese.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So Goa was a Portuguese colony, right? I told you earlier.
Yes.
They held on till the end, but yeah. So there are a lot of Japanese who actually fled Japan during that persecution, and they settled in Goa.
Well, what's interesting is some guy just said chicken lives matter, because I talked about helping I have a sick chicken that I'm taking. Well, she's not really sick. She's pretty much well recovered, but I helped her recover because she was egg bound. She had an egg stuck inside of her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we have to and they'll die if you don't take the eggs out. So eventually we eventually got the egg out, and I know a vet who helped me out, and it was just cool. But anyway, what I find interesting is that Christianity, like people in India were more open to Christianity than people in Japan.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what I find interesting. That's what I find so fascinating. And people will say like, well, the Japanese are so great and they're so wonderful. But at the same time, they were because a lot of conservatives will look at Japan and say, oh, Japan is great because they have like this conservatism and this nationalism. But the reality is that like Japan is very prejudiced to any sort of outside influence. Very prejudiced. Yeah. And
even now, right?
Even now, yes. Well,
they prefer being closed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, have you ever been to Italy?
No, I haven't.
Well, when I was in Italy, everyone was telling me, "Oh, there's so many Muslims in Italy and blah 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 blah." Well, I went to Rome, and I saw a lot of foreigners there, like people obviously weren't from Italy, and the majority of the foreigners that I saw were people from India. And so I talked with some of these people, and most of them said that they were from Kerala.
Kerala.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were Catholic people, and they were from what I saw, they were very devout people. Very devout people.
Yeah.
And they didn't seem like bad people. I mean, the ones that I met didn't seem like bad people. And very devout. They're very, and if you ever go to Rome, there's a church in Rome where they have, I believe, a nail that was used in the crucifixion. And when I was there were Indian people there. Pretty much everyone there was Indian. I didn't see a lot of Italians there, yeah. But it was fascinating to see that. Then I went to St. Peter's Basilica, and I visited St. Peter's Basilica. And again, lots of Indian people there. There were a lot of European people from France, people from Poland, but there were a lot of Indian people there, and it's really interesting to see that. I think there's a lot of hope in India, but we kind of overlook it.
Definitely. There's definitely a lot of hope in India. The church in India.
Mm-hmm.
We're only hoping that that there will be some kind of a unity between the Orthodox and the Catholics in India. So if that happens, then I think
Mm-hmm. Now you're Roman Catholic, correct?
Yeah. Yep, I'm Roman Catholic.
Right. Do you find that there is a lot of hostility that comes from the Eastern Christians in India? More so than, like, when there's a conflict between the two religious factions, who is more vitriolic, you would say, from your experience?
Oh, I would say it's definitely the Orthodox.
Yeah.
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 They're definitely, they got the passion, when it comes to. But I think, the Roman Catholics tend to take a more peaceful route. They want to kind of always find peace in this and find a solution. But I think, with the Orthodox, among themselves too, there's a lot of fight going on. There's one church in the Orthodox that they want to just become a national church, and the other church, basically, they want to be under the Patriarch of Antioch. But they have this whole leadership problem going on, and then they're going around taking churches, stopping people from going to those churches and saying, just taking over. So those kind of problems exist among the hierarchy, especially.
Somebody said on the chat, a guy named Joshua George, and he lives in India, and he says that he was born in Kerala. He says here.
Oh, in Kerala.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Anyway, is there anything else you want to say or ask, or?
No, I think we had a good.
All right, I think we had a great conversation. I enjoyed it.
I hope to talk again.
Absolutely. All right. God bless, man.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, there were some other people that wanted to talk. Panel Costuros, if you want to give me a call and you're available, feel free. If not, I'm gonna give Jay the man a call back because I did lose him. Oh, there he is. Hello.
Theodore.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, I think Chris G still has our interview up. It was taken down a while ago, but I rewatched it a few days ago and it was very cringe.
Well, why was it so cringy?
No, I mean, I'm not ashamed of what I did. I'm just saying I was a lot younger and a lot more.
So how old were you? How old were you when we did that interview?
I was a senior in high school. I must have been 17 or 18 at the time.
And how old are you now?
I'm 24.
Oh man, I'm 30, so still got a long way. It's been a long time.
With me, you look great. All that gardening.
Oh yeah, gardening does help a lot. Absolutely. Well, you're Greek. You're Greek. Are you? So you must be gardening also.
Not on my own. Usually just with my mother and my grandmothers, the ladies do all the work for that. That's something that I needed to. I said to myself, starting spring of 2021, I have to start gardening.
If you need any help, let me know. I'll give you some tips.
Oh, I would very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm inexperienced in it all. And I thought to myself, well, you know, you talk about this a lot, and it's obviously littered throughout the scriptures and throughout the church fathers. But gardening itself was literally what we were put on here to do.
Yes. Yeah.
At all levels of reality, right? Not just of the physical earth, but prior to the fall of Adam and Eve, right? I don't know. I think St. Ambrose talked about this. I was reading St. Ambrose, and he likened the animals, because the animals were all presented to Adam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you read that verse, if you read that section of Genesis on face value, it seems kind of stupid and arbitrary. Like, oh, well, okay, he's going to label these animals. I'm going to call you a cat. I'm going to call you a dog. I'm going to call you a fish. It's like, okay, cool. I mean, whatever. But that's not what was happening. What was happening was that, at least one way that you can interpret that, it means many things at once, but the way St. Ambrose interpreted it was like all of these different animals are representative of the different energies of his soul, or passions of his soul. And prior to his fall, the animals came to him as a Lord, because he hadn't fallen yet. He was reflecting God's grace.
Mm-hmm.
So they see the grace of God through the man, and at the same time he had control over his passions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of being a gardener, of tilling the universe, tilling the earth itself, was literally tilling your inner heart, of keeping the passions, keeping your passions in line with the virtues, with the will of God, right? The logi, as we say.
Yes.
And so it's something that we have to. I'm really bad at that, though. Obviously, where it's a struggle, but
it's a huge struggle.
Actually, gardening for real. From everything I've seen and heard, I would help my mother, and I would watch my grandmother a lot. I know when I used to go to, I haven't been to Greece in a long time. We used to go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But just watching my grandmother out in Agnadia, a northern mountainous village near Thessaloniki, it was just blew me away. And I would say, hey, I would offer my help to her, and she would say, Panayoti. He said the Greek for gardening. That's been a while. But
so you would say no?
Do it, not the guys.
Oh, that's interesting.
She was sick. She was like, no, this is what we do.
Right. Give me one. My cat wants to get out. Give me 2 seconds. Hold on.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
My cat wants to get out here. Oh, man. All right. So anyway, yes, where I live, it's like we have a garden, like chickens, we have cats. It's basically like a petting zoo.
That's awesome, dude.
It's kind of like a petting zoo, yeah. But so anyway, you've been to Greece many times, you say?
Oh yeah, I was born there, and I think the first time I came here, I lived in Indiana, or the Northwest Indiana, the section of Indiana that's basically part of the Chicago, it's just over state lines. Which is I think the second largest Greek community is in this area, the Chicago area. So yeah, I think the first time I came back here was when I was very young. It must have been when I was 1 or 2. But my mother had never left Greece before. My father, he flew over there. He planned to live there for a while. He was playing for the basketball leagues in Crete, actually.
Oh wow!
And he met my mother there. Dude was hilarious because he started flirting with her in English. This is a tactic that he taught me to all the tourists, and he's been doing it for a while. He would speak like a clueless tourist to all the natives there in English, and then when he would sort of wind them up. And my mother, she was with her friend, and she was like, oh, "This guy's an idiot. This guy's weird." She said it in Greek, and then he responded back to her in Greek. "Oh, you think I'm weird, huh? Am I really that weird? Was it something I wore? Was it something I said, or just something?" And it blew her away, right?
Caught her off guard.
Yeah, and so basically, I try to stay focused, but my mother had never left the country before. She was, I think, 19, 20 when if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 19 or 20 when she came here with me. I was just a baby. And my father felt guilty of just ripping her away from her family like that. He had to do it for work reasons. And he paid for, I think, almost every year of my childhood. He would pay for her and me to go back there like 3 to 4 months out of the year.
So,
Yeah.
So what is, go ahead.
No, it's been a while. I haven't been back there since I was 17 because, you get involved in, my university and everything, and just don't have time or the money to travel at that point. But I'll go to Italy. I did go to Italy when I was summer after I went to Greece. Because I took my high school was, I think, one out of two that offered a classical Latin program as a foreign language, and I took it, and we had learned basically just studying reading all the like ancient manuscripts, classical manuscripts. I'm really ashamed. I wish we would have gone through Augustine and a lot of the church fathers, but we didn't, unfortunately. But yeah, they offered, I think, every 2 or 3 years. My school offered a trip to Rome, Naples, Herculaneum, and the island of Capri. And yeah, so I went there the summer after I went to Greece, but after that I hadn't traveled like at all outside of the country, and I really miss it.
So how many times have you gone to Greece?
Ooh, okay, let's see if I can. It must have been like at least 10 to 12 times.
Wow.
I'm trying to think about, I don't have the count in my head, but I do miss it though.
So
yeah.
No, go ahead. I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
I used to only speak Greek when I was really little, and I knew like the English alphabet. And the thing is, if you speak Greek to me, I can understand you, but it takes. I need a good 3 weeks to a month of being immersed in that culture to start speaking it again, fluently and colloquially. Right now, it is like working a muscle,
So, what's the difference between Greek culture and American culture, from your opinion, from your experience?
American culture, I wouldn't really call it a culture, really.
Okay, let's say, what's the difference between living in the U.S. and living in Greece? Like, just from your experience.
I think though, the thing about living in America is that it's very much centered on. Because everything has been secularized, because everything ripped from its nothing eternal behind very much of anything. You provide your own values. It's a propositional nation. And so when you reduce everything to that, everything becomes commodified. Everything becomes basically like a product that you buy and sell, and it's all based on essentially what you wear. And that I think unfortunately, it applies to religion. And this is a huge problem that a lot of the Greek immigrants, as they came here, they fell prey to this mindset so badly. Like, where, I can go to church on Sundays, and then throughout 6 days of the week, I can sort of live like an atheist and do my job and just go about my day. And, I'm paraphrasing because they're all honorable people. They would work hard. They do what they had to do. So, take this with a grain of salt. But just the overall mindset that you feel, and over time, it corrodes your identity. People don't, at least from my perspective, a lot of people aren't speaking Greek anymore. A lot of the priests, they do the liturgies in Greek, which is, beautiful, beautiful language. It echoes very much of the words that the apostles would have spoken, or what the scriptures were written in, but nobody understands it, and it's really a shame, I feel. And when you're in Greece, at least certain parts of Greece, some parts of Greece have fallen into this mentality as well. I know there was a monk in Cyprus. His name was Athanasios Mtilineos. He was a very popular spiritual elder at the time. And he had told the Greek teenagers at the time, and he was warning, not the teenagers, but he was warning everyone. He was sending out, I think, just cautionary letters to the Greek government, and he was saying, look, if we see what's happening with Germany. We see what's happening with the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be very careful, because what they're going to do, and he was using the book of Daniel as, and basically throughout the whole Old Testament as a guide. What happened to the Jews in the Old Testament, how God, it says in the book of Daniel, God handed the keys over to Nebuchadnezzar. Which is basically the idea that, well, if you stop worshiping me, if you stop doing your prayers, if you stop doing what you were supposed to do, your duties, if you don't fulfill your end of the covenant, I will allow your enemies to destroy you. I think it says that in Deuteronomy as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obey me and your enemies will cower down before you. Do not obey me and your enemies will destroy you. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this monk was saying. He's saying, look, we're going to financially and spiritually, we're going to go bankrupt. The morality of the materialists, of the Germans, of that whole mindset is going to destroy us. And it was, of course, they didn't heed his warning. Greece joined the European Union, and you had the whole financial problem like almost 10 years ago now, and even now they're basically bankrupt and broke. But in the parts of Greece that haven't succumbed to that,
mm-hmm.
it's very much, there is such a level of tranquility and integrity.
In Greece.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you go out, especially to the monasteries or certain holy lands, I know near Thessaloniki, I haven't been up there. I know people out there, though. And it's really, you do get this feel, though, as messed up as it is there. And I speak for other traditionally Christian nations as well. But in the case of Greece, because that's where I come from, and there's much of the epistles in the New Testament were written to various Greek villages and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You do get this sense of sanctity, and it's something that your father actually. One of the things that made me love listening to your father was he would talk about the connection he had to the various lands in the Middle East.
Right.
He was reading the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
I know this place. I know this place. I know what this is referring to. Well, when I would read the book of Acts, chapter 17, and it says how Paul walked the streets of Athens, right?
Uh-huh.
Every time I read that, I get kind of giddy inside, because I was born in Athens, and my family lives in Athens as well. At least most of them do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just something that really interests me too. You get that sense that most people don't really have anymore.
Well, I remember I've never been to Greece, but I remember I went to Spain, and it's like when you're in Spain and you see these beautiful churches, you see these ancient churches from the Middle Ages, from the Renaissance period, and then you got that Mediterranean sun hitting you, and there's just something about it. I can't fully explain it, but there's just something about it, and it brings you so much peace. I think brings so much peace to you. I think every nation has a feeling, and you don't get that feeling in America. America's kind of depressing.
Yeah, and you try really hard to bring that here. You try really hard to do that. And
yeah,
it's very difficult. I know exactly what you're saying there. I know in particular I believe it was Medina Monastery, but I'm not sure. I know this happened a long time ago. I think the last time I was there when I was 17, I visited this convent, and couldn't take pictures. The nuns said you couldn't take pictures, which I highly respect. I love that sense of exclusivity and secrecy that they have. But I would see icons there, and there were icons that were done like almost 1,000 years ago now. I think they were done in the 1020s, I believe. Like 20 years prior to the schism, the official schism. And it was just beautiful that you would see this. And the fact that here's the thing I like, things did not look so clean. They didn't look so properly symmetrical, that there was some sense of imperfection there. And I really do appreciate that. Like when you look at even, not the architecture, the architecture has to be perfectly symmetrical because things would collapse, but the ornaments and the mosaics and the iconography on the walls had some slight sense of imperfection, you could say. And I really, it made me feel at home.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I saw that in the mosaics. You see that in the mosaics. in the ancient mosaics. So for example, I never been to Greece, but when I was in Italy, there was an ancient Byzantine church there that I visited. And it was from, I want to say, the 4th century, or 4th or 5th century. And it is gorgeous, and you see it's sublime. I don't think gorgeous is a fitting term, but it's sublime. And you see these ancient mosaics up there all over the ceiling. And then I went to this one Byzantine church, and this church was built, I want to say, sometime in the 6th century. Basically, it was around the time that the Byzantine Empire fought against the Vandals, and you had the general Belisarius defeated the Vandals in North Africa. And they made this church, they built this church, and if you go to this church in Italy, you will see a mosaic of the general Belisarius. So it's super fascinating to see that. But when you go to Greece, how are people there? Like, generally speaking, are people aggressive? Are they gentle? Are they like, what's the general demeanor of the people there?
In my experience, I had this awesome experience when my family was driving up from Athens to the village of Nagnadia, the very beautiful mountainous village toward the north. Once we had cropped up against a gas station, a really old-fashioned gas station, right before we would go into the mountains. We had people there, and this is something that this experience here, we take it for granted here in America, I guess. We're not very territorial here in a way. Like, here, let me explain. Like, we would go up to this gas station, and the people looking there, they would give us these very kind of strange and uncertain and apprehensive glares. Like, what the hell are you doing here? This is our place. It's like, we've never seen you here before. And they didn't care. They didn't have the sense of manners that we have here. Like, oh, you shouldn't stare, you shouldn't point. Everybody was just looking at us, like pointing at us, whispering with them, looking at us everywhere. We're just like, what the hell's going on? And my brother was like, why are they staring at us? We're human. And I'm sitting there like, not to them. We're aliens to them, bro. They don't know us. We're like aliens coming down on Earth.
Right.
And they're trying to protect their land. And this old lady, she came up to my dad, who was driving the car. He pulled out his window, and she just asked him straight up, which basically means, whose are you?
Oh, wow.
Like, all right, are you related to anybody here that we know, basically? And then we said, yeah, we're related to Ianu, his family. And right when we said the name, there were like twitch that went off, and they were like, oh, we're your best friends now.
Right.
You know, and immediately they're like, oh, we know you. You know, you passed the test, come in. And then right when we walked in, within like 5 minutes of us getting out of the car, we had all these neighbors, just simple villagers and farmers. They would provide us with food, so many kinds of dishes. And these people were, and this is something that puts Americans to shame. These people were very, very, they weren't as affluent as we are. They were just simple farmers and villagers. And the whole village basically pitched in, and they provided us with enough food to feed us for like 3 days.
Wow. And what did they feed you?
Oh, like different kinds of like pitas, like the spanakoppitas, the tiropitas, or some sweet, like the bifles and others. We also had like, some of them gave us a little bit of lamb, which is just so good. I know it's very savory, and for them to give us that is just such an honor. Various kinds of hortas, like the different plant meals that, well, by horta in Greek means like grass, but we kind of mean like spinach by that in English. So when they were basically under Nazi occupation and obviously the Ottoman occupation, they weren't allowed to have all of the meats, the good food, so they would go out and pick up various types of like grasses to chew on, but they're actually very delicious and very, very nutritious too. You get a lot of protein from them. And yeah, so with all sorts of food like that, and it just, I was blown away by that. Just the level of hospitality and love and willingness to give.
Yeah. Spanakopita is really good.
Yeah, spanakopita, exactly. That's one of my favorites, man. And it's something that we do extraordinarily badly here.
Wait, yeah, go ahead.
No, we're good. We're good.
Do you guys like the Spanicle pizza with? Do you prefer it with the cheese, or do you guys have it with no cheese?
I prefer it with cheese. Like what you can do is you can make it with cheese, or you can make it just with the cheese. So
I
you
see.
wrap it up in just the cheese, and but I prefer a mixture of both. I've also had versions of it where instead of putting the cheese, or you mix the cheese with bits of pumpkin. We've tried that too with my family. That's really good.
Yeah, I've never tried it with pumpkin. I've tried it with cheese and without cheese, and it's all really good. In the Middle East, we make a similar dish. I forget what it's called, but basically we take Swiss chard and we stuff it into dough and grilled onions. And yeah, and then we brush olive oil on it, and then we put it in the oven, and it gets a really nice coating. It's actually really tasty. Really tasty.
That sounds really good.
It's very tasty.
You put olive oil and a little bit of lemon.
Yeah.
Most of your different dishes, and there you go.
Yeah, it's lemon, onion, salt, and pepper. Well, actually, I don't think any pepper, but onion, lemon. You saute the greens in olive oil, mix it with, and then you first you saute the onion, you add the greens, then you finish it off with lemon, and then you put it into dough. But the dough has to be like really thin. You can't make it thick.
When did you start cooking? Because I know, like back in the day, I used to watch. I haven't really watched you that much recently, but just getting back on here. But I do remember back in the day, you used to post all sorts of different videos of you cooking. Like, when did that begin for you?
Cooking.
Curiosity.
Sure. So cooking began at a very young age. My father always cooked a lot. My mother cooked a lot. My mother's from Mexico, so she cooked a lot of like traditional Mexican dishes. And my father, being from the Middle East, he cooked a lot of Middle Eastern stuff, obviously. And then when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I started watching Food Network. And I remember watching Jamie Oliver. And he's very good. And I remember seeing Jamie Oliver on Food Network. And I also saw Emeril Lagasse. And Emeril Lagasse was really good. He's not around so much anymore, but he was really famous in those days. And I really liked, I used to watch Emeril Lagasse every day, Emeril Lagasse. And I wanted to follow his recipes, and I would try them, and they would be terrible, but I kept going on. And then when I was 12 years old, they started a cooking club at the junior high school that I was going to. And I joined the cooking club, and they taught us how to bake bread, how to make pesto, how to make basic things like that. And yeah.
Did you go because you liked cooking, or did you go because you wanted to impress the girls?
No. There was no girls. No, it was just cooking, man.
I'm just messing.
No, it's okay. So this guy's stuck in an elevator. I don't know. What?
I was chatting with him. Is he still stuck there?
He's still staying. I'm stuck in an elevator. I don't know if this is serious or not. It's crazy.
I'm tempted to we gotta call the cops or something and record it. If it's actually real. If it's not real, it would be. Not get in trouble though.
But yeah, I got into cooking and I just went on from there. I went on from there a lot. Do you think can we like put this guy on the call with us? Because I don't want to hang up on you.
We can. Yeah, we should be able to add people. Yeah, add friends.
Okay, hold on. Are you there? Hold on. Oh, I lost him. Are you there? Hello? Sorry, I disconnected with you. Are you there?
Yeah, it's okay.
Hold on. I think we can add people. Hold on. Let's try adding this guy because people want to hear what this guy has to say. Hold on.
You may want to have to create a group, and then that'll be a group call.
Oh, it says I can add people. So let's see here. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm looking for him. Right. I'm looking for him. What was his name again?
His name is Change Your Name.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can.
Change your name, #7806. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, hold on. Change your name. I think I have to. Let me see if I can get him here.
I shouldn't be laughing at this because you might actually be in trouble, but there's something.
Let me see if I can. I think if you're stuck in an elevator and you have no signal, you can use the internet to call 911.
Yeah, I think you can get like Viber or I think Facebook Messenger or some other app, like calling app or Telegram should have.
Okay, hold on. I don't know if I can change your name. Hold on. He started a call. Let me answer this guy's call and I'll give you a call back, okay?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, hold on. Hello? Hello, hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
I can hear you.
Hello, I'm stuck inside an elevator. Do you know the one with the buttons in?
Yeah, so how long have you been stuck in an elevator?
I've been stuck in here for about an hour and 15 minutes or more, maybe. I don't know. I was watching your stream on my Wi-Fi and went to take down my garbage, and I heard a new religion, you know, that Corona tongue. So I got inside the elevator and started looking the buttons. I think I might have got electrocuted because I woke up on the floor.
Uh-huh. So can you...
I was hoping you could call 911 for me, please. I'm in Kentucky.
Okay, so if you're not trolling me right now, you can call 911 on the internet. So you have internet right now, yes?
I'm not too sure, sorry. I just woke up on the floor.
Where are you from?
I'm from Kentucky. I'm stuck inside the elevator.
Okay.
Pizza Hut.
Okay, so look at your phone. Okay, go on the internet. Do you have Gmail on it?
I don't know, sorry. I just made this Discord so I can speak to you. I was hoping you could call 911 for me.
You don't sound like you're from Kentucky. You sound like you're from England. He hung up the phone. What a freaking troll. That's such a British accent. Oh, you crazy English people. Oh my God. I can't believe I ended my phone call. Sorry. Are you there?
Oh yeah, troll alert. That was funny.
That guy had a clear British accent.
Yeah, I heard it too. I was like, come on, man.
Yeah, this guy.
I'm from Kentucky, mate.
I'm from Kentucky, mate. I'm from the South, mate.
Have you seen The Room? Tommy Wiseau.
The Room.
It's one of the worst. It's one of the best horrible movies ever made.
Hold on, The Room.
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau, right? That's the guy who made it. And there's a scene. There was a movie made by James Franco about the making of The Room.
Uh huh.
And the Tommy Wiseau character had this like weird accent. It was clearly like some type of Polish aberration or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody would ask Tommy, like, "Where are you from, Tommy?" I was like, I'm from New Orleans. You from New Orleans? Yeah, I'm from the bio.
Well, actually, the actor. Now that I googled it, I got it now. The actor who played it, the guy who was like, "I did not hit her. I did not."
Oh, hi, Mark.
Do we even know where that guy is from?
He's from the best guess that people have is that he's Polish, and the reason why he has all that money, people speculate, is that he did a lot of work with like the Polish mafia.
Yeah, that because
it's not confirmed exactly.
I've heard that's the big mystery. Was that where is this dude from?
Yeah, this movie is great though. I mean, it's horrible, but it's one of those movies that you put on. You know, you drink a little whiskey and you just want to have some good time. Good time with friends, yeah.
So so have you recently gotten like seriously into your faith? Is that why you have the beard?
About my faith, here's the thing about my faith. No, the beard thing was because I wanted to see what would happen if I grew it out, because I didn't know exactly. And I found out I guess I could grow it, so I did. And then after I grew it out, I really liked it. Of course, the only people who don't like it, my mother doesn't like it because she wants me to go back to the baby face.
Uh-huh.
You know how mothers are. And my brother doesn't, but I have a suspicion that he's jealous. But it's okay. But everybody else pretty much thinks it's pretty cool. But the thing about my faith, though, for a while, I mean, when I was young, I went to liturgy because that's what Greeks do. And you had brought this up earlier, I'm sure many times before. you do what you do because everybody else did it.
Right.
And I didn't really think much of it for a while, and until I got roughly into middle school or junior high was when the atheist questions of some of them are pretty good objections, I must say. Like, oh well, if you grew up in a vastly different culture, you wouldn't be believing what you would be believing. How do you know? We have so many confirmed, quote unquote, confirmed ideologies and faiths. What makes yours the best? And they're not bad objections to bring up. I mean, now they're not. When you look at world history, you look at even the testimony of saints, you look at the effect that Christianity had on literally everything when it comes to philosophy, ethics, epistemology, and everything else. But regardless of that, I was starting to doubt really badly. And it was funny. I remember in middle school, I had started talking to this one Protestant girl. And I was so naive at the time. I thought, and innocent, I thought everybody was baptized. Like everybody baptized.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's what we do, right? And and I had explained to me as a young child, like, you need to be baptized or else you won't put on the garments of Christ. You won't have passed through Pentecost, the Holy Spirit, which is true. But when I was speaking to this girl, she's like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm not baptized. In my mind, I'm like, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I was just really curious about that. And then that's kind of my foray into Protestantism. This one girl who was like super emotional and like on fire for the Lord type thing, which is I find that to be very disrespectful, because you start using this exalted spiritual language of being on fire, of, oh, I have this love for Christ. You take this, you have these sensational ramblings, and then you attribute that to the Holy Spirit. I'm like, how do you know you're not being possessed by a demon?
Exactly.
And that's why we have in the spiritual life, or the hesychast, or the Orthodox spiritual life, we have this idea of, the Greek word for it is plani, the Russian one is prilist.
Right.
But the idea is like, the idea basically stands for delusion or spiritual wandering. It's like, how do you know you're not being led on a merry chase by some demon that can imitate Christ? I mean, that's what the scripture says. Satan can imitate, he can make himself to appear as an angel of light. So yeah.
The thing about I remember years ago meeting this girl. She was the daughter of a pastor and all that, and she said that God speaks to her. And I said, how do you know that God speaks to you? And she said, don't question that the Lord speaks to me, because you're questioning God.
We have plenty of examples in like the Old Testament of specifically advising the Israelites not to do that. I know we have Moses who says it. I know what comes to mind is in the example of Saul, and he confronts a witch for some type of advantage, and apparently summons what he thought was, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Saul attempting to summon Samuel? Is that correct? I know.
Yeah, it was King Saul. It was King Saul wanting to summon Samuel. Yes.
We should know our scriptures better.
It's okay. Okay.
But yeah, and we have examples like that throughout the Old Testament. We also have, if you read like Irenaeus, when he was confronting the Gnostics, in the early Gnostics, he was like, avoid the doctrine of Simon Magus. And you see that he was referring to the book of Acts, and how you had people using magic and black magic and summoning spirits and seances in such a way that would give you the advantages of grace that are not supposed to be yours. It's something that God gives to you in extreme humility.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you look at these various left-handed paths, and many of them are just having yourself be a vessel for spirits and then claiming it to be the Holy Spirit. So when I hear things like that, like, oh, well, you're questioning God, you're questioning the Holy Spirit, it's like, I don't know, man. I see the people who often talk like that, particularly like the Pentecostal types, and you see them flopping around the floor like a fish.
Yeah.
I don't think that's, I I don't feel grace and tranquility. I don't feel the fruits of the Holy Spirit that St. Paul talked about.
Right.
Peace, forbearance, love. I see like a demonic ragdoll that you
Exactly
basically reduced yourself to. And it's not, but it's, yeah, but regarding my faith, I went through like the crazy kind of hyper messianic stage. I started watching back when I was about 16, 17. I was like, all right, I'm not an atheist. Christianity is the best. You got to defend it at all costs. You know, it's the sort of that youthful zeal.
right.
And I was starting to get like really deep. I thought I was getting deep into various like parts of scripture and writings. Of course, as you get older, you realize that there's far more nuance and layers to things. That doesn't mean necessarily that you were wrong, but you didn't have a full enough picture to speak out on something. It reminds me of this saying that you find in, I believe it's in like the different Greek Orthodox seminaries, but they would often tell their students who went to study theology, as a warning, they would say, you know who the first theologian was, right?
Who?
And they would say, what? And he would say, the first theologian was the devil.
That's an interesting observation.
Yeah, in the sense that he had everything. He understands God more than any of us do because he was there. He was his brightest creation. He was the most beautiful angel, and he was there before we were made. And it's something that we have to be very cautious of, because just having knowledge, the gnosis, but not the theognostia or the epignostia, the intimate knowledge of God through that you get through prayer, through fasting, through cultivating cultivating the virtues in you. These are things that it's not easy, and there's no quick way to get this knowledge. You're not going to take. Like I was reading, I have next to me right now, going through St. John of Damascus in his philosophical chapters, and he literally, this is amazing because he begins his work on basically in epistemology, how he takes from the pagan philosophers and he appropriates them for the way that a Christian would understand philosophy and acquire knowledge. And he starts it with, like, paraphrasing, you have to find I should have bookmarked it and planned for this, but he basically says before we do theology, or before we are to do philosophy in the true sense, we have to purify our hearts so that we can properly reflect God's laws and his grace. And so, like, prior to studying about God, we have to make sure that our hearts are clear so that we're not led astray. And that's something that we have to be very cautious of, because at least for myself, I just jump like headlong. I want to go read and I want to go learn all these things I need to learn. And that's one of the ways that we can have our pride leveled against us, you know?
So the question I have like two questions for you, because I'm not Orthodox, but I've looked at a lot into Orthodoxy over the years, and I read a lot of Orthodox literature. Well, not a lot, but I've read a decent amount. So two things. One, how does one reach, I don't know the exact term, like how does one reach theosis through the Jesus prayer? I know the Jesus prayer is a big thing in the Orthodox world. Do you just repeat the Jesus prayer every single day until you reach enlightenment, or how do you go about that?
Well, first of all, that's never to reach theosis on your own. That's extremely rare and almost impossible. You do find occasional examples of, like, Saint Mary of Egypt, for example, how she would just go off into the village and just did battles against her passions, and she prayed her heart out for like 40 years, and then she became a saint and she died. So we do have that, and we do have other examples of people becoming straight up hermits and then having visitations from angels. We do get an example of that actually with I believe it was Elijah too.
Yes.
He was flown away, and the angel, Elijah, rise and eat. And we do get examples like that from various hermits and ascetics. But for most 99.9% of the time, you need to be with a spiritual father. You need to find someone that, first off, that you can trust. Find someone who's done a sufficient battle with his passions, who's had a good amount of life experience, preferably someone in a monastery, not someone in the world, because the people in the monasteries, they free themselves from many of their earthly obligations, but it's not an easy lifestyle, because as soon as you renounce the world, the demons are like, oh, this guy thinks that he can start ascending the path. We're going to assault him 1,000 times more than we would anybody else, right?
Right.
So that's something that on your own you have to pray to God and say, God, find me a spiritual father. Please guide me, help me find a spiritual father. And sometimes, and I'm still looking for mine. And that can take a very long time to find someone that you trust, to find someone with a certain level of sanctity. Potentially, if we are worthy, and we're not worthy of having literal saints, guide saints, and Saint Paisios and Saint Porphyrios and many others who had attained to this exalted state, and I could recount some of their spiritual exploits, and many people wouldn't even think that they were real. But the true gift of the Holy Spirit. So one, you have to find someone like that, or find someone as close to that as possible, and take instruction from them, so that they can help shield you from that delusion that we talked about earlier. Because you may, and there's something too about what, in terms of the Jesus prayer, of a more practical side of it, you don't want to have enlightenment as your goal, per se. It's going to sound weird. You don't want to necessarily have a vision or some type of sensation as your final goal, because what we have in the way we understand it, the Orthodox spiritual life, is we have what we call apophasis and cataphasis, and I think Thomas Aquinas, I think he theoretically agrees with it. We don't know exactly if we would agree with some of the other aspects, but he would use the term like the via negativa and the via positiva, the way of negation and the way of positivation or positivity, you can say, use the Latin terms. But the idea is that you are to essentially balance these two. And this is something that's very misunderstood by a lot of people looking into Orthodoxy, because they'll notice some aspects of it that seem to mimic like Far Eastern spirituality. But I can go into that for a little while. But the thing is, though, our practicing of apophaticism or apophasis, of like purging ourselves from all sensations and images, is really just us practicing the second commandment. We're trying the best way we can, as far as God allows us, to purge ourselves of all idols, of all images, of all sensations, and just to allow the grace of God to dwell in us. And then once we've gone through that for a little while, at various stages in various ways, we can then begin to speak about our experience of the grace of God. And so it's kind of like an inhalation and an exhalation, if you will. You're never to stay in that like apophatic, purged state, because then what will happen is you will completely lose yourself. And that's one of the temptations that I think Satan does push for people, is they get caught in this, let's say, I'm going to fast for 2, 3, 4 days on end, I'm just going to do nothing but pray, and you might be given flights of fantasy or flights of delusion. And then you might think to yourself, wow, I've reached theosis, like I'm good, I got it.
Right.
And then bad things happen. Like if you go to Mount Athos, for example, we love Mount Athos, and we've heard a lot of great things about Mount Athos, right? And there is. But if you go off the cliff sides, I don't know if people tell you or heard about this, but if you go via or look towards the various cliff sides, you will find piles of skeletons.
I've seen this before, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of skulls.
Definitely. Yeah, skulls and skeletons off the side, and it calls to mind when Satan dared to tempt Christ to jump off and have the angels catch him. And it's something that if you're not cautious, and if you try to make too much progress on your own, then you can be led into serious delusion. Like I know we have the example of Nikita Stephatos. He was the spiritual child of Saint Simeon, the new theologian. This was at about 1000 or so, 1000 AD. And he, paraphrase his life, he would go into the cave, and his thought process was, well, I just want to sit alone and by myself and just read books. I just want to read as much of the Fathers as I can. I want to read as much of the Scriptures as I can. I just want to read. He began to do this, and an angel appeared to him and said, Nikitas, look, just sit there, read books. I will give you a good enough memory. Just read books, and I will pray for you. I'll do your prayers. I'll do your Jesus prayers. I will do the liturgical works that you're supposed to do. Just sit there and read books. And what ended up happening was he took the advice from this quote-unquote angel, and he became extremely wise. I think he was like in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
He became very, very wise, and he started going around spreading his wisdom and answering people's questions and objections and all that. And people were amazed at the wisdom that he had. And then word spread to the monastics who knew of him and said, how is it that this lad has? How is it that this lad has this wisdom? You don't get this kind of wisdom until you're like in your 50s or 60s. Mm-hmm. You're not privy to have this. This isn't natural. And they come to the conclusion that a demon is feeding him true knowledge and using that knowledge to fill him with pride. Mm-hmm. And so they confronted him and said, Nikitas, you need to stop what you're doing. Tell us what happened. And he told them about the angel and everything. And he said, you need to go now, get yourself exercised, and renounce the spirit right now. Because if you continue in this path, you're going to fall into destruction. And you're going to lead others astray. And so they did that. And as soon as the demon left him, that took the form of an angel, he wasn't able to read or write for, I believe, a few months or for a few years.
Wow.
Literate. And God allowed that to happen to him so that he could be drastically humbled. But after a few years, he regained skill and he was able to start reading again and everything. But he became a saint in the Orthodox Church. And that's something that there's littered with stories like that of just doing battles with the demons and being very cautious of when we talk about theosis, because it's almost dangerous in a way. We should talk about it. You shouldn't be afraid of your faith, right? But at the same time, there's a sense of a certain sense of weariness that we need to have when we talk about these exalted forms, because it's something that it can be very tempting to people, especially with our fake materialistic American lifestyle. It can be very tempting to just say, well, I want to go off and live like a hermit because everything we do here is fake, right? I can't reach any form of exaltation in this life. But in terms of the Jesus prayer, the more practical aspect of it is you need to, contained within the Jesus prayer is, I think, the entire story of the gospel itself. Mm-hmm. You have a recognition of Christ as Lord. You have the Father, Kyrie, Lord Jesus Christ, and so you're referencing the Father, you're referencing the Son, and then you're asking mercy from the Spirit, you can say. So the idea is that in the Greek one is, if you read it in Greek, it's actually more telling. It says, Kyrie Isu Christe eleison, right? And the word eleison has a similar root to the word for ladi, for oil. Mm-hmm. And that's a reference back to the old days, how when people would bathe, they would bathe with oil, or if they wanted to be anointed, they would have oil. And we still do this now, the Holy Unction services and the Chrismation services. The use of oil as a means of reflecting light, oil makes you very shiny and clean. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, of course, in English we say have mercy, but that doesn't come off as clear, because if you just read it in English, it can sound like, please don't crush me, big God. I know I'm sinful. Please don't crush me. That's a small part of what the prayer actually refers to. It's a recognition of your need for healing, right? Because it was used to heal people, to clean people. And so when you do the prayer and you start to get into a habit of doing it, you almost start to do it without really thinking that much, because it becomes ingrained in you. And the idea is that the name of Jesus Christ, when you say his name, the demons tremble, because it is a holy name. It is the name of all names. It's the God-man's name. It's not any dude, right? It's our Lord and Savior. And so when you get into the habit of calling his name to memory, then slowly over time, and this can happen over years, you are slowly filled with levels of His grace, and that grace will start to reveal to you your own brokenness, because we're all very, very broken, very and much in need of healing, all and every one of us. And the fact that we don't wake up every day and just lament over our broken state, like we're not crying profusely, is a sign that God's grace is hiding our ugliness from us. That, or we're hiding it from ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But as we go deeper and deeper slowly, then more of these sins, more of these tendencies begin to come to the surface. And the idea is that you are to, in some sense, you're to ask the Mother of God, or particularly, because she's the one who will teach you how to pray. She was the first Christian, right?
Right.
So when we ask her to teach us how to pray, Lord, oh, Mother of God, please help me, teach me, give me tears of contrition, give me tears of compunction, like, show me how ugly I am so that I can heal. And I'm sure this, I'm not too familiar with this in the West, but I'm sure, the concept of crying is actually very therapeutic. It's a reminder of your baptism. It's kind of like, yeah.
I've read. Go ahead. Sorry. Finish the sentence.
Oh, kind of like a second flood, you can say, or a second, like the flood of Noah, how it cleaned out all of the sinful people, right? It's a mini version of that. But that's what I was getting.
One thing I've noticed about the Eastern Orthodox literature is that they have a focus on weeping. The showing of tears as an expression of guilt, as an expression of the desire for redemption, and understanding that you are guilty of sin. I've read a lot of Western Christian literature, and I've also read a lot of Eastern Orthodox literature. Most of the Western Orthodox stuff is Augustine. I've read some Aquinas. I've read some Bellarmine, but those guys are very technical in their writings. For the most part, they're very technical. But I think Aquinas had a revelation later on in his life when he was in church, and he realized that all of his knowledge on theology was not meaningless, but it was eclipsed by his desire for redemption, and that was really all that the faith is about. And I think he went
I think Augustine had a similar. I think toward the end of St. Augustine's life, he wrote a work called Retractions, where he went through a similar form of lamentations of regret, that some of the things that he wrote, he wasn't entirely sure of. And, similar to that.
I think as far as spiritual writings, one of the best Western, or some of the best Western saints I've read is Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. He wrote a wonderful work. Oh, I forgot the name of it, but it was many years ago, I read this book, and it was a beautiful piece of literature on oneness with God. He doesn't say theosis, but the way what he describes reminds me of theosis, of becoming one with the divine. He even talked about seeing God's creation in nature, and some people could read this and say, "Oh, this is pantheism," but it's not. But like seeing God in nature, experiencing God's presence in nature, being one with God. And also there was Saint Maximus of Turin, who was a very spiritual writer, who also emphasized a lot on oneness with God, or that a divine union between man and God. I did read a little bit of Gregory Palamas, and Gregory Palamas.
He's great.
I have one book by him. I forget the name of it. It's been so many years, but it was based. Yes, that's it. The Triads.
The famous one.
Yes, and he talks about it's basically about divine union, or like fighting your passions, overcoming temptations, and having that love for God. There's a Eastern Orthodox prayer that I heard years ago. It was from Serbia. I heard it from a Serbian chant, but a friend of mine from Serbia translated it for me. And there's a beautiful line in this hymn, in this chant, and it says something to the likes of, "Lord, speak to me until my heart burns." and I've never forgotten this prayer, and I will actually.
Saint Gregory Palamat had a similar prayer that he would just repeat constantly. He would say, "Lord, illumine my darkness."
Illumine, yes.
Fortisitos kotosmo, or something like that in Greek, but it was. I love that one. That's something I bring to mind.
Yes, and one thing I love about the Eastern world is that there is a simplicity in the way that they explain things, but there's a lot of beauty in it. There's a book I remember reading, and if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend that you do. It's called The Mountain of Silence. It was written by a professor from the University of Athens, and it was written, I want to say, in the 1980s. The Mountain of Silence by Kyriakos C. Markides.
I've heard of him, yeah. I haven't read his works.
I read this book back in 2015, and I have never, I just have never forgotten it. It's such a beautiful work of literature. Basically, this professor went to Cyprus, and he hung out in a monastery for like a year, and he interviewed all these monks and recorded their knowledge, and he put it together in this book. And I just loved this book. I loved it, and it helped me so much in my spiritual life. It helped me so much. The book gets into a lot about the thoughts and how our thoughts affect us, and how we shouldn't really pay too much attention to thoughts, and we should just like allow the thought to come and then just let it go, because the monks talk about how Satan influences us through our thoughts. And thoughts of pride, thoughts of anger, thoughts of hatred, all these things arise from us. And sometimes, you have a thought and you're like, oh, I had this thought. And it was like, I don't know. It could be something like, I had this thought that I was just going to kill this guy or something. And you're like, oh, am I a killer? Am I this? Am I that? Blah, blah, blah. You start like overthinking it. And I had this issue actually for quite some time. It really bothered me. But then I read this book, and honestly, after reading this book, I've never had the issue ever again. Ever.
Oh, wow.
Never had the issue ever again. Because now it's like, because the monks, there's this one monk in the book, I forget his name, but he's a Greek monk, and he talks about how he even gives the Greek term for it, but it's basically how Satan influences us through our thoughts, and how we can.
So, logos me, right?
Logos me, I think that's it.
Logos me, yeah, that's the like little pieces, like translation, like many inclinations, or like pieces of logic, like deeds of logic, thoughts, like
right,
things that they try to plant in your heart.
Yes, and they try to ruin your peace, and that's the whole purpose: is to really make you unstable, or to ruin your prayer life. Yeah. And he talks about how, like, when you pray, sometimes these thoughts will creep in, blasphemy, all sorts of things can come up, and how once these thoughts come, just acknowledge it and just let it go. And the monks talk a lot about this in the book, like acknowledging that it's there and letting it go. And I spent hours reading this book. I honestly couldn't put it down. And I loved it. I loved reading this book. It was such a life-changing book for me. It talks about the Jesus prayer. It talks about the danger of what you said, spiritual arrogance. It gets into all of these things. It talks about fasting. It also, near the end of the book, it even gets a little bit into Catholic Orthodox relations and how best to better them. And the big thing with the monks was the fact that it was Westerners who sacked Constantinople before the Muslims did. Before the Turks sacked it, Westerners sacked the city of Constantinople. And how the Orthodox Christians, especially in Greece, they actually have never forgotten this. They've never forgotten this. And they basically, like, the professor talks about how Pope John Paul II issued an apology to the Orthodox world for the sacking of Constantinople. And the monks acknowledged it in the books, and they said, yeah, we acknowledge that John Paul II did do that, and we appreciate that. And they thought that was great. So I think I just think it was a beautiful piece of literature.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I read. There's another book that I recommend everyone to read. It's called The Life of Moses. I don't remember the name of the saint who wrote it, but it's such a great book.
Life of Moses. That's a great one.
Saint Gregory of Nyssa. Yes.
That's an awesome. I've read snippets of that. I keep my library just keeps piling up, but that's one of them that I haven't really gotten yet. But that's something that is from what I heard about that one. It literally highlights the spiritual life to a T. Like the life of Moses is literally, and how he is the one to lead Israel. The life of Moses in Israel is the archetype of every person's spiritual journey. And what really got to me, at least from what I read about from that life of Moses, was how when the Israelites were finally freed from the Egyptians, and how many times after they did, they constantly complained to God, "Oh, our feet, oh, we did this." They took the gold and they created their own idols to mimic the idols that they left. It's so painful, because I mean, how true is that for all of us? How many times do we? There's a prayer to the Mother of God, that a section of it that goes like, "Oh, please help me, Theotokos, please help me. How many times have I run and repented to your Son?" And then immediately after, I return to the thing that's left behind, like a dog who's eaten too much, regurgitated the food, and still went back to eat it.
Yeah.
There's a prayer like that. It just really hits at the core of that the fact that, yeah, I repented. I thought I repented, but I still have this perverse craving.
Yes.
And it's like,
it's that battle.
Yeah.
It's that battle. Yeah.
Here's the thing. You're never, this is something that we have to keep in mind, is that, and this kind of goes into the whole distinction of the Eastern and the Western idea. There's a book I recommend too, if I really like it. It's called The Place of Blessed Augustine in the Orthodox Church. And because there was a temptation by many people in Greece, because of the hatred they had for the Latins and the schism and the issues that they had together. They were tempted, because the Romans based their theology and philosophy off of Aquinas, and he himself based a lot of it off of Augustine. And so a lot of the Greeks were tempted at the time to just say, "Oh, Augustine is no longer a saint. Screw this guy. His fault why we have problems with the Latins, right?" And there were many, of course, in Greece. That was a temptation for a while. But this is the book that was written by. It was written by the same guy who wrote the Nihilism book I mentioned.
Rose, yeah.
Yeah, he's his life story is one of the most awe-inspiring conversion stories ever. Like a brilliant intellect, and at the same time, as he would go toward the end of his life, he became one of the America's greatest hesychastic monk. He did it all with a few friends and a few elders, and mostly by himself. But it was just, he became very much a leader. But he loved Augustine, and to paraphrase the book that he said was, well, when you read Augustine's Confessions, what do you find? You find a man who's wrestling with God in the truest sense, in the deepest sense of his being. And I have the Confessions, and I read a few every once in a while, and I'm really brought to tears by them. And we would say about Augustine, we would say, look, we don't. He's a perfect example of piety and of forthrightness and love of God and wrestling with God. A pious example, but he's not someone that we build our theology off of, because his theology, when he wrote his theological works, it would say some good things, but he was still very much influenced by Greek philosophy, by Plato, Aristotle, all the ancient philosophers. And so he hadn't fully kind of detoxed himself from those ideas enough to speak about God. So he was trying to merge or speak about him in such a way that was still too much influenced by philosophy. But despite that, we just say, look, okay, well, he made those mistakes, but the way we act, I mean, all the saints, if you dig deep enough, you'll find problems. You'll find Saint Chrysostom, I think at one point he said the world would end in the year 1000 or something. He actually put an end time date, which you're never supposed to do.
Right.
Or something of that sort. So he would make mistakes, and everyone would make mistakes, and you're not supposed to quote mine the good quotes or the bad quotes and just load them in a machine gun and say, ha. I mean, that's what the Protestants do with the Bible. they rip it, they rip it and they mutilate it, and it's funny. Saint John of Damascus, when he was talking to the Muslims, he would say the same thing. Muslims would accuse him of mutilating God by saying that he is three, and he went on this whole tirade of like, well, how are you to know God then? If we are made in his image, right? He has voice, he has logos, he has spirit by which we come to know the logos and by which we signify his essence or who he is. I mean, how else are we to know him? You are the ones who mutilate him by making him impersonal or some sort. It's beautiful. He just rips on the Muslims. You know, it's
I've read something. I've read a good amount of John of Damascus's work. Another saint. I think there was another saint from the East who wrote about Islam. He debated Muslims, actually, in Syria. Saint Theodore of Maimuna, I think. No, I forget. Oh my God!
Theodore the Studite wrote.
Not Theodore the Studite.
Oh, okay.
He wrote against Saint Theodore the Studite wrote against the iconoclasts.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look it up real quick. And there a question that I have for you about orthodoxy.
I went on a huge tangent. I apologize.
What? No worries. And then another question that I have for you is what is the energy essence subject? Like, what's that about? The energy and essence thing. I've heard Orthodox bring this up, and you've actually brought this up with me on the comment section. So I want to know what that is because I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm gonna do my best. I'm not an expert on this. I can I'll reference some people to look into who are experts on it. But I'll do my best. But in terms of the idea of the energies, right? That's something that the thing is, in terms of God in and of himself, we cannot really, we cannot know what God is. We have the various, you can say, hierarchy of beings. You have the height of the hierarchy, you have God. Right? You have, obviously, he's completely immaterial. He's completely unlike anything. We have many references in scripture that testify to that. We also have the angels, which are more like, you can say, like they're cosmic intelligences or noetic beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're not entirely immaterial, but they exist. They have some, they're not as crude as we are, but they do exist. And the fact that we can't see them is because we're very much steeped in our sins, and our carnal sins. And then as you go further down the hierarchy, right, you have human beings, and you have, and then within the human beings, you have the hierarchies there. But in terms of the essence of God, God in his essence, or what he is completely beyond any topic or any form of contemplation or thought or anything like that. And then you say, okay, well, then how do we know about God? Because if he's completely unlike anything that exists, then how, in what way can we speak of him? Or how do we even know that he exists? Why can't we just be atheists or whatever? Well, we have the idea of the energies. And the energy, the word energy, this is something that people misconstrue. Energy is actually a Greek word. It comes from energion, which I believe translates to something like a work undertaken, or like works being done, attributes. You could say operations. That's the operations is the Latin variant. So the operatio, you can say.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea there is that, like, to give a subtle example of this, for it to make sense, right? You and I are speaking right now. I mean, I have my webcam off, but if we were sitting next to each other, if I had my webcam on or whatever, but even with just my voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot really know my essence exactly. But we've been speaking for quite some time. You know, you're listening to the tone of my voice, the pace of my voice, the words that I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If I were next to you, you could maybe look at my hand movements. You could look at the way that I breathe, the way that I enunciate things. These are my energies. These are my attributes. These are my works that are undertaken. And you can get a sense of my personhood, of who I am as Pano, just by talking to me. And I can likewise do the same with you as Theodore. So I don't really know what you are. And you can even, let's say, like, in terms of a scientific example, I can I can go to someone, I can kill him, and I can do an autopsy on him. I can study every morsel of his essence, or what I think is his essence as being, and I can get to some ideas about him, forensically. I can figure out, okay, well, this guy must have been a smoker. He must have done this. He must have been at this age. I can get to some progress or some insight about him, but I won't really know him as a person. And this is something that we strictly emphasize. Well, first of all, in terms of the word energy, we find that littered throughout Scripture. I know in the Corinthians, it's in the epistle to the Corinthians, you hear that. I think Paul talks about God worketh, and even I worketh, or works in various members of his body. So it's a concept that you hear all throughout Scripture. But in terms of that, the reason why we don't speak on the essence of God is because if you try to penetrate into the essence of God, you're going to end up in complete insanity. We even see this written up by the early church fathers to try to meditate exactly how things work. We base our whole theology, our system, our spiritual life, we base it on things that have been divinely revealed to us. We start with revelation. We don't start with, I know you brought this up too, I don't remember whether you are, but you don't necessarily start with looking at the created world and deducing things back to God. You can look at the creation and notice the handiwork of God, because it's clearly the world is beautiful. If you really pay attention, you can see. Mm-hmm. That's actually one of the ways that you can understand God, by his energies, actually, the things proper to the creation. So there's some energies of God, we would say, that are proper to creation. We would call those the logi, or I think Thomas Aquinas would call them the archetypes or the exemplars. There's a few different names for them, but the issue we would have with Thomas Aquinas and the Western conception is they recognize these archetypes, these exemplars, these energies, but they equate them with God's essence. They say, well, these things are God's essence. They don't make a distinction between what God is and what he does through a person. And that's the fundamental cutoff point in the debate between Palamas and Barlam and the Eastern-Western divide in the spirituality, is that when you don't make a necessary distinction between what God is and what he does, in the West, I believe, they say, well, yeah, I've heard people in debates, some of the hardcore Thomists would say, well, yeah, these energies are there, but they're just conceptual tools that we use to help us. It's like, no, they're real. They're not conceptual. Mm-hmm. And something that we would say, well, if all of God's energies, actions, attributes are the same as his essence, then was God always creating? That's a simple question. Was God always creating? I would say no. He created at a certain point in time. He created within 6 days, and he rested on the seventh, right at the beginning of Genesis. Those were actions that he took at a certain point in time, and actions that he will renew at the eschaton, at the end of the world. Things will be made new. But he wasn't always creating. He created at a certain point in time. We can say, well, all right, when Christ walked on water, is that the same as if God's energies are all the same as his essence, then all the energies are the same with all the other energies. You make no distinction. Then you can say, well, is God's walking on water the same as his creating the world? Is God's love the same as his wrath? Is God's mercy the same as his long suffering? And all of a sudden, all these distinctions that you make all of a sudden become conceptual distinctions. They're not something that you are real and that you can have a personal connection with. And another thing too, this goes back to the Cappadocians and to the early councils, but the idea is that the fundamental unit of reality, you can say, that you can understand is not essence. Now you can conceive of it in such a way that's helpful, but you don't really understand the essences of things in that sense. What you really understand as like the irreducible fundamental layer of reality is person. Mm-hmm. The concept of person. Like God is personal. You don't start with trying to find out what God is that you can then later tack on. You can reason back to like a first cause, and then you can later tack on the Trinity as kind of an afterthought. No, you start, the first unit that we have for understanding ourselves and for our whole system is Christ. Because Christ became a man, and he showed us what it means to be a man, and he showed us what it means to be God. Right? He joined our nature with him. And so you don't do your understanding of reality outside of your Christology or your understanding of who Christ is.
Mm-hmm.
And then through Christ, we have an understanding of, from what he's revealed to us over time, he's revealed to greater and greater detail. He hasn't revealed more new things per se, but he simply allowed us to express the same revelation in more clear terms over time, because the essence energies distinction, it wasn't brought up in the early church because it wasn't questioned. It was just something that people sort of either they intuitively understood, or it wasn't a cause of any sort of confusion. Or you can go to any problem like Nestorians' understanding of the Christotokos and the Theotokos. Well, why was that an issue? Well, because you make this idea that, well, Christ hypostasis, Christ had a human hypostasis, a human personhood, and therefore he had two personhoods, and there wasn't actually a perfect union of the two natures of human and divine,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people didn't question that until later. And then you go to the other councils, like obviously the Muslims with the icons and everything else. But the idea is that, at least for the energies, all of God's actions or his attributes are signifiers of what he is. So like I can build a house, and here's another example. I can build a house, I can write a book, like you've written many books, and I can purchase one of your books. I mean, are the books the same as your essence, is
Mm-hmm.
what you are? The books are separate, but they are a product of your energies, a product of your works, and I can get to know who you are by partaking of that.
That makes sense, yeah.
And we can make the same thing with creation. And this is why we don't. Some Orthodox, the Orthodox who are influenced by modernism and Marxism and Cubanism and all that, I would say, are the ones who affirm evolution. I would say that's complete garbage. And a lot of the actual saints who lived in Orthodoxy from the time of Darwin, the same thing. And the reasoning for that is you can't, and this kind of ties into the natural theology of the West that we have a little bit of an issue with, where you can look at creation and then you can go to that and say, well, I'm going to reason back logically to the essence of God from it. Well, you can't do that because our nature is fallen. This earth is fallen. If you look at the world and you say, well, I look at this world and I see like animals eating each other, and I see death carried out, I see disease, I see famine. If you are being honest, like what kind of God would create a world like this? Because if you don't have a worldview that accounts for the fall, that there was once a fall for this exalted state, then you can't understand what God is, right? Or why he did what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason too why you can't affirm the theory of evolution, because I mean evolution is just ancient Gnosticism. It's all these ideas of like, well, we look at the world around us, there's death, there's survival of the fittest, there's this kind of will to power carnality to it, there's no love. These things are just things that we brought in. And so, well, it must have always been this way, so we're going to build an entire worldview around that, right? And that's why I think St. John Chrysostom said something like Moses was given through revelation as a prophet, how you have like prophets of the future, prophecies in the future. Moses was like a prophet of the past. And he allowed us to look into, as much as we can, how things were in this exalted state and showing us what our purpose is. And so, I don't know if I got too far.
No, I think what you said, I think what you say makes sense. That we can, I think what you're saying is we can experience God through his attributes, and that also includes his creation, because you can see his hand in the art of creation.
Yeah, we would say instead of natural theology, which is a Western term, we don't like that term, because you can't actually do true theology from looking at nature. Because like I said, if you do natural theology, you end up with evolution. You end up with, well,
right.
That's what the world is. What we would say is we believe in natural revelation. That's the term that we would use. Because what does nature reveal to us about the handiwork of God? I mean, even in the fallen states. And that's not disconnected from our spiritual life. And this is the weird thing about Orthodoxy is that all of the different tenets of our faith, our scriptures, our theology, our liturgy, our sacramentology, our Christology, our understanding of the world, all these things are not taken separately that you can just study and understand separately. They all have to be taken into like a package deal. And that's something that it's very hard for if you're in a secular mindset because you're constantly compartmentalizing things and compartmentalizing various fields. Like if you don't have clear repentance, we were talking about the spiritual life, right? And all we're talking about spiritual life. If you're not struggling against your passions to cleanse your heart, then your reason is going to be screwed up. You can't even reason properly. And so then how can you hope to do philosophy and science if your heart is unclean? Even Christ talked about this, like if the eye, there's darkness in the eye, how great is that darkness, right? We find that in Scripture. And so it's like, it's not disconnected from the spiritual life, from cleaning your heart from repentance, and then the theology itself is simply a means to lead you to the experience of Christ, that personal experience of Christ. And it's a difficult thing for a complicated topic, because when you have everything just split apart, then it becomes this Protestantized sentimentalism and all that, and it's not. You can just say whatever you want without any of those words having any meaning. And but I hope I got clear on that, because I do tend to go on tangents. That's sort of the Greek.
Yeah, that's it's understandable. No, I think you did fine. I need to figure out how to use this microphone. I'm not sure if I'm doing this correctly, actually. Oh, okay. But anyway, I think we're good for today. But I enjoyed very much this conversation with you. Absolutely. And if you ever want to call back, absolutely. I think I'm gonna call it a day though. I think I've been streaming for 3 hours now. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, oh man, this thing is way too loud.
It's good to be back though. I mean, I think. Or to be back to watching your videos.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you're on and you're commenting again, and I'm glad that you're not into like messianic Judaizing anymore.
Very much, yeah. We all go through those stages,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Anyway, it was great talking to you. And what do you guys say in Greece? You say axios?
We would say, no, we wouldn't say axios. That's more of like a formal thing.
I see. Okay.
We would say like, oh, yasu nastadora pali or something like that.
I can't pronounce that.
No, you're good.
All right. I enjoyed talking with you, okay?
Oh, yes. If I come on later, I will be less.
No, you did fine. You did fine, man. I appreciate the conversation.
All right, man.
All right. God bless. God bless you, man. Bye-bye. Oh, okay. I've been streaming for 3 hours. The man, I forgot how to say your name. Something the man. What was your name again? I forgot. But I told you I was going to call you back, but I've been streaming for way too long, so I'll try to talk to you next week if you're interested. JJ the man. But anyway, I enjoyed talking with you guys, and yeah, God bless you guys.